program. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And this morning we want to launch we want to have a session on governance and sustainability for the development of the soil fertility and soil health platform. And I want to request, because the main participants or the organizers had recognized that Caro and FAO would do the lead, and so that we have a continuous flow as to what had been agreed on. I want to request that Stuart, you come and moderate this session. Then we'll finally request the chair who was meant to have been chairing, Dr. Mulinge. How are you? Yes, karibu. Yes, and we'll finally ask him to probably say something at one time. But we have a session on partnerships and collaboration, a session on sustainability and funding, a session on legal and ethical consideration, a session on monitoring and evaluation, and a session on outreach and user adoption. So that we don't delay too much, I'll probably ask Stuart Higgins to come and moderate these sessions. Thank you.
Sorry, good morning, and to all our remote people. Today is a very important day. We're hoping to wrap up a lot of the content that we've seen presented over the last 2 days. And we have quite a full agenda. So let's kick it off. Calro Partnerships, Dr. Margaret Mackello. Is she here? Hi. Sorry. Would you please? Are we connected remotely now? Is everyone online? Yep. Okay, good. So then after this, we have a presentation from FAO. Next, please.
Gone off. Okay, thank you, and good morning all. I'm Margaret Mackello. I'll make a presentation on partnerships and collaborations. I think let me pick my laptop. So actually I'll be setting the pace for the other presenters, because mine is a general overview of matters, partnerships and collaboration. And from the program, I see like I'll be touching on all, or mentioning all the topics that the other presenters will come and present. So I thought I should say something about Calro, because it is how come we have a partnerships directorate It is a young department, and I'm heading that one, but my background is in plant pathology and plant breeding. So KALRO is an umbrella body that brings together the following former organizations. We had the KARI, we had tea research, coffee research, and sugar. And these KALRO institutes and centers are 16 institutes, 51 centers, and you can see from the map that they are strategically located in the country to enable the organization meet farmers' demands. Next. Now, because of that, therefore, KALRO identified that we can have several areas of collaboration and partnership, and that one cuts across public-private partnerships. I was online the other day, and Charlene really dwelt on this. So she gave us also a very good background on how public-private partnerships work. Then we have learning and capacity building as also good areas of collaboration, research, and resource mobilization. So all those aspects, if we look at them, then each of us here will see where we fit in this web. And the process of establishing partnerships in KALRO is we are guided by our strategic plan, which is now operational. We reviewed recently, so it's still fresh. Then we have collaboration and partnerships policies that guide because we are a government institution. We have an MOU template, which I know our legal expert will talk about it later, on which we develop a draft MOU after we have received a request from the partner, or we have gone out to look for this partner. So it is two-way, that we also source for partners and also partners come to us. And therefore we have this draft, the template that we use that will now enable us, depending on our interests, we develop a draft MOU through our legal office. And from here, that is when we'll have back and forth discussions until we concretize, and therefore the MOU is signed and is domiciled, or the legal office is the custodian. So that is the process. So from immediately now, or rather after the MOU is signed, then now we have an implementation framework that we develop together so that we see how we benefit from each other's energy. So these are some of the documents, because we're talking of governance and collaboration. We refer also to these documents. We have the Kenya Constitution, 2010, the Vision 2030, and now we are in MTP4. If you went to any website in the government places, you'll find this document explaining what we need to do. Then in the Ministry of Agriculture, who is our mother, we have the Agricultural Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy, 2019-2029. They all guide us. We have Sustainable Development Goals. So it depends on which one fits your objectives of working with us. The Agenda 2063, the East African Community Vision 2030, East African Industrialization Strategy 2021-2032. Because remember that as KALRO, we are looking at research for commercialization. So it's not just research for academic or anything like that. Then remember, we have the plan, the present government, which has the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. And from this, we have the PETS. The presentation was well done on day one. Then we have the county integrated development plans from our various counties. Agriculture is devolved, so we have to refer to this so that we see how we can work with the different counties. Then we have line ministry policies, depending on which ministry is coming on board, whether it is health, whether it is trade, and agriculture itself. Then we have the university charters, we have performance contracts, and any other document that be relevant depending on where we have the interest. Because of, by going through these processes, we have all those partners. So check where you are. If you are not here, or if you fell off at some point, you're welcome back. We want to populate it further so that we can have even 2 slides of looking at the partners in detail. We have transporters, traders, farmers. We have public sector and the county governments. We have the private sector. You'll see how many they are so that we work with them. We have the IARSs. We have development partners, and we have NGOs, farmer groups, all these partners. There is a place for them within KALRO. Next. So these partnerships have led to over 200 MOUs signed. We have established, it has led to the establishment of linkages with private sector for fabrication and application supply of appropriate agricultural machinery and equipment. I'm just giving a few examples of how diverse we can be, depending on the interest that you have and looking at the guiding documents that we have and policies. There is use of unmanned aircraft system, that is the drones for research. We have an MOU with them. We have contracted outgrower farmers for planting materials. And we have worked with universities, local and abroad. And there we have some of our officers as part-time lecturers. We have interns on attachment. We undertake the research together. We publish together. And we also have students on attachment both ways. Those are the other achievements. And being agriculture-based, you find we have many of them. That's why you have so many crop varieties released, about 109. We have production of materials, about 69 million have been given out to the farmers and other organizations that are working with us, and several tons of basic and certified seeds. We conduct a pesticide residue for pesticides for registration. We have plant clinics which we have established, where we have plant doctors. We have developed climate change adaptation technologies, and we have technologies for management of crop ecosystems. That is the weather forecasting. The KOP was presented yesterday, and this one I use it easily to anybody who cares to listen, because they need to know that they planted this maize or this crop at the wrong time. And sometimes they think I'm a weather prophet, because it is very precise. I'll tell you, don't plant. And for sure, when I come after 2 weeks, it rains on that day, and they say, wow, Dr. Makelo, you are the best. Next. So all of us can still do that. So those are some of the products of our research. We have coffee varieties. We have chicken improved. We have sorghum varieties. We are doing a lot of research on sheep. We have all the goats, breeds. We are doing a lot of research in the lab, biotech. We have even honey oils from salt palm or oil palm. We have sugarcane varieties, and we have the Sahiwal breed, among others. I thought I should just showcase some of those. Next. And because we are here today, from day one to yesterday afternoon, I've been following the conversations, the presentations, and I was looking at the soil system, which is also like a value chain, and it requires multidisciplinary approach. So developing partnerships, therefore, becomes key on matters capacity building and research, on the farm where we are going to collect the soil samples and other research activities, how we are going to work in the lab, the user interface and extension, how are we going to take out this information to the global landscape for use, how do we monitor what we are doing, and therefore report to policymakers, and at what stage do we archive. So when we look at all these components, and this platform, as in summary, has brought together partners who are the building blocks for the development of the platform for sustainability. And that is the best way to go. Next. So these are some of the screenshots I was taking during presentations. And this is just to confirm that, yes, CalRO also goes out to look for partners. Look at bullet 3. The calls for partnerships to work closely and for benchmarking and all that. So they have already even suggested some of the partners. So these are, I think, our soil scientists. When we go to the next slide, we have what I've just been talking about. When we were preparing this workshop, when you look at the slide top left, these are the partners that have funded this workshop. It could not have happened without that. So it just shows the importance of partnerships. And by the time they were approached to be involved in this workshop, they also saw what they are going to benefit from that. And therefore, they said yes. We have everybody presenting at least one slide indicating the partners they are working with. And those are just the examples. For quality control, they gave those, especially for soil analysis, those are the partners that were talked about. When you look at the Kilimo organization, the slide down, it also shows they didn't come out clearly because of it wasn't showing me clearly, but I saw that they had also put at the bottom there, the partners that Kilimo is working with. Then we are also showcasing the technologies, the geospatial. So who is this that can come and also showcase this? And I'm happy that later in the afternoon, you talked of the hackathon. Who are these people that can come with the technology showcase and the innovation so that we see how we can work together? Then the Met department also showed the observational network. This you have to know who has this different facilities, equipment that can be used. Otherwise, the information will remain within the offices of Met or meteorology in Kenya. Next. Yeah, so just the continuation of the same. Looking at the models, what we are doing. So when you look at those presentations, then you should be able to see if these people are undertaking this kind of activity, then I can fit in one of those areas. And therefore you look at how best you go about it. The universities were not left behind. They're looking for collaboration with stakeholders so that the curriculum developed is sharp for the students. It is up to date. And therefore we can't just have the 1960 curriculum to the present generation. And that is why the university being here is very important. We have other organizations, you see, like the key elements of Edgewise. Edgewise also, they have shown what they do. So how do you fit there? The information for dissemination, again, the last slide at the bottom corner, they also show who are involved in this dissemination of the weather information. So all this, I was just giving examples to show that actually Matters Partnerships is not far-fetched, but it's something that we have to think about and make sure that it happens. And if it does, then we will be able to grow this platform as sketched by our IT experts. And therefore, each of us has a place to fit and contribute so that it is sustainable. It is an organic thing, so it is bound to change. Partnerships change. Come in when it suits you, when you're benefiting, because you have to have an incentive to invest in whatever. And that means we will have actionable and interoperable. I picked this from one of the presenters. Actionable and interoperable soil information system, and therefore we'll be cultivating a community of service that will make that farmer happy. We will have very high yields and all of us will benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See that CalRO has a long history of partnerships with other people. And so next on the agenda are some remote presentations by FAO. led by Henry and Yusuf, who you've met on previous days. Henry, are you online?
Yes, I'm here, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please take the show. Thank you.
So good morning all. Karibu. I hope you can see my screen. I have a few slides that I want to share with you, specifically on the partnerships that we have at FAO. Two generic ones, and then Yusuf, my colleague, who will speak specifically on some of the soil partnerships that we are part of. FAO is a member of the Digital Public Goods Alliance since 2020. It's a multi-stakeholder initiative that was launched in 2019 to accelerate the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, and specifically to work better together in a digital space on digital cooperation. As we've seen also in some of the presentations, and one of the challenges that always comes up is the fragmentation in the digital space. And this alliance is really trying to tackle that, working together along clear license models, clear standards. And I'm very happy also that many of the partners that are here present in Nairobi during this workshop already are a partner of the Alliance and also contribute digital public goods. So what are digital public goods? They are open AI systems, open source software, open data, and open content, all based on very clear open standards. And in the presentation yesterday, my colleague Carl Mortio, he already mentioned a few standards that are really critical for better discoverability, for example, on data registries. And one example that is in use, for example, by FAO and many other partners, is the CCAN Open Data Registry, which is critical for registering all the data that's available also in the area of soil data. So at the moment we have actually since yesterday, 5 certified digital public goods, which are the FAO CPAL that was mentioned also yesterday in the presentations, the Digital Service Portfolio, the FAO Hand-in-Hand Geospatial Platform or Agroinformatics Platform, and also the Water Productivity Portal. But there are many more that are actually used by many of the digital services that are provided by FAO and also through our partnerships. For example, ODK Data Kit for data collection, or Rapid Pro, which is offering mobile services, and also Kobo Toolbox and Moodle for e-learning. So there are many. And the Alliance is in the process of trying to make sure that all these digital public goods play well together to provide better services on digital public infrastructure. The second collaboration that I'd like to briefly mention is the Global Coalition for Data and Digital Food Systems Innovation. And that coalition, which is co-led by FAO, the World Bank, WEF, and CJR, is trying also to better work together on unlocking public, private, and non-profit tools, services, and investments. So it's very broad, and it came out of the Food Systems Summit. And in this coalition, we try to build an inclusive digital revolution and foster data agency and responsible sharing, be force multipliers, iterate and share learnings, and innovate responsibly. So these are some of the principles that are at the heart of this coalition. They're very high level, but it's really trying to, again, as I mentioned before, to tackle this fragmentation and work together in a better way through partnerships and collaborations. So there, it can be joined by both countries and partners. So, for example, in terms of countries, our ask is for countries to commit to provide strategic leadership and governance for the global efforts of the coalition. So in this specific case, what we're trying to achieve is to really work better together in the area of the soil platform, but do it in such a way that it's possible also to pivot. And when I say pivot, I mean to pivot and make sure that the solutions are reusable by other countries. So you can, if you have a similar use case, the building blocks and the tools, they can easily be used also by other countries. And it's easy to pivot from one domain to another. So in this case, we're talking about soil, but it's also important that the solutions can equally be applied to other domains, for example, on water or on forestry. One of the tools and one of the open source products that we are using is CPAL, which is specifically for forestry. But the cloud computing capability that it offers can equally be used for other domains. And for partners, the call from us is for many of the partners that are contributing in this digital space and contributing to the specific task and challenge of Calro, is to do it in such a way that we are all part of this coalition and of the alliance and work together along the digital public goods standards. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Yusuf, who will specifically speak about the soil partnerships.
Thank you, Henry. Good morning, everyone. This is Yusuf Yigini from FAO, Land and Water Officer. I'd like to talk about a bit about the Global Soil Partnership. It's another very well established partnership at FAO. It's a global partnership, GSP. Was established in 2012. It's a global partnership, and all FAO members are part of the GSP. Specific to Kenya, Calro is representing Kenya within the partnership, and under GSP we have 7 technical networks, and one of them is INSI. INSI is the International Network of Soil Information Institutions. The network is focusing very much on soil information and data, and developing global data products. When I say global, all global data products are very much country-driven. These are country-driven global data products being developed by the countries, GSP and the FAO. We are just compiling them into global data sets, global maps. On the other hand, the INSI is developing a federated global soil information system. Global soil information system is a system of systems. Is bringing all national and regional soil information systems together, connecting them with the central hub, which is called Glossus Discovery Hub, as a catalog service and a map service, using a standard language, standard data exchange language. That model is being developed. And GSP has also started recently within its new framework, the GSP New Action Framework, developing a soil health indicator system, which is being developed under SoilStat concept. SoilStat is the global statistics system for soils, and together with the soil health indicator system, the GSP has been developing also a soil health index. It's called Global Soil Health Index, yet is local and regional, I would say, because it's being developed in a reproducible manner. We are working on a concept that can be reproduced at national and regional levels, and to help countries, to help regional soil partnerships to develop their own regional and national soil health dashboards using the soil health indicator system and soil health indicators, select soil health indicators. So these are being developed by a dedicated working group and a dedicated technical network. That working group is called ISAF. ISAF is composed of all GSP technical networks and all national experts from all FAO members. I'm here talking about more than 190 members of the FAO, and led by the ITPS. ITPS is the Intergovernmental Technical Panel on Soils. So at this point, the GSP was established in 2012. Now it's GSP is almost 12 years old. So over the 10, 11 years, has developed tons of tools, platforms, and programs. At this point, we started using these tools, putting these tools into action in countries, in regions. And one of the opportunities is here is the Soil Fair. Soil Fair is an ongoing project. You heard about Soil Fair and GSP on the first day from my colleague Isabel Lotto. It's an ongoing project and recently expanded to 2 countries, Ghana and Kenya. The Soil Fair starts from the ground, goes back to the ground, to the farmers and the governments. It's a very comprehensive and a complete framework, and to be built on existing initiatives and partnerships in the countries. So because it puts tools and programs in action that have been developed by the GSP and its partners over more than 10, 11 years. I said it's an ongoing project. It started in Zambia, Guatemala, and Honduras. We already teamed up with CRS, for example. CRS is the Catholic Relief Services, CIAT, and USAID in Honduras and Guatemala. For example, with IFDC, International Fertilizer Development Center, and ISRIC, the World Soil Information, in Zambia, to develop the things together, because there are existing initiatives and programs. It's not only Kenya, also other countries are very crowded with tons of initiatives. Those initiatives have similar workflows, similar soil information and data workflows. So we are teaming up, we are partnering with existing initiatives, not only NGOs, but local initiatives like national stakeholders. When I say FAO project, FAO goes to the country office, teaming up, partnering with all existing stakeholders and initiatives, and start implementing the projects. So with Soil Fair, we would like to bridge the gaps in the soil information and data workflow. I said from field to very end users, like starting from sampling and bringing something actionable, usable and useful for the end users, for the farmers, and for the governments, for extensionists, to help them with purely data-driven, informed decision making for crops, fertilizers, and sustainable land and sustainable soil and land and management practices, for example. And Soil Fair in Kenya, in Ghana, because it's been expanded recently, would like to focus on wax. Wax is the vision for adapted crops and soils. It will be implementing the wax for decision framework. For decisions here are the where to crop, what to plant, what management system, and how to apply. So Soil Fair aims to set the scene as a starting point for wax, because wax aims to mainstream the opportunity crops. These crops are also mentioned as forgotten crops, lesser known crops, non-measured crops, and these crops are the crops that are highly nutritious and already adaptable to local conditions, and also extreme and erratic weather conditions. So in short, there are existing partnerships, the technical and non-technical partnerships. GSP is a global partnership aiming to bring the soils and keeping the soils on the top of the agenda, global agenda, also national agendas and regional agendas. And the Soil Fair, on the other hand, is a technical framework using the tools and initiatives and programs that have been developed by the GSP. when I say GSP, is all members, all partners. Partners not only the countries, the member states, but also the partners. I'm here talking about private sector, NGOs, universities, all kind of stakeholders. Like together with the countries, I'm here talking about more than 1,200 partners. They are the member of the GSP. So the GSP has developed tons of tools and stuff that what we want to do is we want to put these tools and programs into action in beneficiary countries using the resources that are provided by the donors or mobilized by the FAO. For example, one of the flagship initiative is Soil Doctors Program. Soil Doctors Program. So we would like to implement also in Kenya, together with other beneficiary countries. That program is a peer-to-peer educational program to be implemented, focusing on sustainable soil management, soil threats, also some like decision-making support in the field for the farmers. Yeah, I'm more or less I'm more or less done. That yeah, that's all from my side, Henry. It's over to you.
Okay, back to
Yusuf,
Stuart then.
it's
Stuart,
very
back
loud.
to-
Sorry.
Stuart?
Can you sort the feedback out?
Stuart, can you still hear us?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, so with that, back to you for a question and answer and next sessions.
We're having a little bit of feedback here. So thank you very much, Henry and Yusuf, for this very interesting presentation on potential partnership frameworks and agreements that we can use. And I think we just add this to the mix, and then we can see how we can utilize the different structures already in place and maybe benefit from what's already going on in other countries. So on to the next agenda item. This is sustainability and funding. The Ministry of Agriculture are not currently here to give the presentation. Wait. Yes. Yes, please. Do we have microphones, please?
Thank you. Thank you. I hope I can be heard online. Yes. I think it's very good to have the kind of collaboration and partnership that is being talked about. And we really appreciate, like what Yusuf is talking of the GSP. We really appreciate what we are getting and how it can contribute to this soil fertility and soil health platform. But let me come back to Margaret's presentation. The collaborations that Caro has, a lot of MOUs are there. But I think it's important that for us, we look at these collaborations that we have, the MOUs that we have, in terms of soil health systems. You know, that was what she called it. We would appreciate if the entry point is not data collection. I think it's important that we do not start with data scientists. We start with data collection for us to ensure quality control and credibility of the data and ownership in terms of Caro. You know, I think it's important that we do that. And based on that, I can tell our partners, collaborators, that we have a rich pool of close to 80 soil scientists and agronomists. We have environmental scientists. We have crop health scientists. We have agricultural economists, and all this will contribute to making this platform generate and have data that is useful and relevant for an enhanced agricultural system. I think it's important that we do not just start at the point of bringing in data, that we involve our scientists, subject matter scientists at that level. And I'm happy with the, the FAO collaboration on the GSP, because we have, we work together. So we develop, that information collaboratively, rather than to bring in just data. We feed them in models, and there is nobody to check on quality control. I think it's important. It's important that we do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions before we move on?
Good morning. Morning, this is Frank Rasche speaking from ITA and member of the Excellence in Agronomy Initiative. I am involved in soil health scaling actions in the initiative, and I would have a question to the GSP ACTA framework and the development of the Global Soil Health Index. It may be dependent what kind of indicators you choose to calculate such an index, because it might also interfere at the global and also a local scale. And for me, it would be interested how you can derive from a global map on soil health index and to narrow this down to a national, regional, or even local scale, because the diversity specifically in a smallholder farms is very diverse, and where you might have a problem to have a clear vision and a clear indication of soil health on local scales when you use a global approach.
Henry, I think this question is aimed at you.
I think it's more for Yusuf, no? On the
Yeah, I think it's more for me the Global Soil Health Index. It's part of the new GSP action framework for the next 10 years that we want to give structure of the GSP activities, how GSP activities are being implemented in the countries. It's okay. It's a global soil health index that I was saying, the global, but yet local, because the reproducibility and interoperability and flexibility are the key here. The working group is looking after that, because a global soil health index, we will develop something as GSP, as FAO. We will put a global dashboard, but it will give you just a global picture, just hotspots. Its soil health is going down or up. Soil is in good health or bad health. But the key is, because FAO is a very much country-driven place, we want to bring something, a framework to be deployed in the countries, by the countries, and by changing the parameters in terms of, like by changing the indicators as well. The global soil health index now, for the time being, is not set yet. That uses the 21 soil health indicators. So it's still being discussed, like harshly discussed actually. but it will bring a global framework. Then you already put in some projects to reproduce this approach in some countries. So it will not be looking the same as the global one, though we will give countries a certain flexibility and reproducibility to establish and develop their own soil health indices plus soil health dashboards. So it's very important because we are very much aware of these the problems and limitations and issues, because the different regions, different countries, different climatic zones and agroecological zones are different stories. So the working group is working on that to bring something flexible and reproducible enough for to be used by all countries, all members.
Well, just a note on that. So you are right that such a framework has to be flexible in the end, and it needs to be closely to the local context, certainly. Yeah. And whenever you adjust such a system and you select an indicator that fits to a local or to a certain context, it can be locally, local, and it can be national, continental, and global. It finally will also determine the result of the soil health index. So that means whenever you calculate an index on a local level, using different parameters as for the global scale, you will always result, well, different values, and the comparability might not be feasible.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, but it's not done work. But it will be done. It will be, the concept will be ready by June this year. We have the plenary assembly in June, the GSP plenary assembly. We would like to present the outcome of this working group's work in the plenary. Yeah. Thank you. Very well noted.
Thank you very much for these additional questions. So just to recap, it's very important that we don't look at just the data collection, but look at the holistic aspect of the framework, because collecting diverse data, as we all know, is extremely challenging to combine. So this is an aspect. Utilizing the Calro experts, obviously already in place and who've been doing this for quite some time. So that's another aspect that we need to take into consideration in the partnership. And that the frameworks at a global level aren't quite as exact as frameworks needed for local levels. So this is another aspect that we need to look at when taking into consideration how we collect data. So I think on that note, we'll try and move on to the next topic, which should be Carl. And it should be on sustainability and funding. Carl, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Stuart?
I can indeed. Over to you.
Okay, let me just share my screen. I have some presentation notes. Okay, where's the share button? Here it is. Okay, so in this session, I wanted to talk a little bit about what it takes in order to build the solution and then to operate the solution. So we've been set quite a big challenge. And I think if I can explain a bit about how we've been set up ourselves, it could provide some inspiration for the formulation of the roles, responsibilities, work packages that would be required to build and create a sustainable system. So within FAO, we have the geospatial platform, and we have several different teams. Now, these teams can be covering more than one area. They can be a hybrid of outsourced or partners, or they can, or commercial contracts, or they can be fully run within FAO. But I think it's interesting to look at each one of the boxes and what they are adding to the party in order to deliver and sustainably operate the agroinformatics platform. So at the very top, we have the management, coordination, and governance. So this is led by the executive of the project, providing the overall strategic direction. And within that group, we also have the representative of the users of the platform. So the senior user that is representing the people that will use the outputs of the agroinformatics platform, or in your case, it will be the fertilizer optimization solutions, to ensure that what is delivered is actually useful and will be used and is going to obtain the desired benefits. So they're also providing some of the measurements on whether the project is successful or not. The other role here at the very top is the role of the sort of technical lead or the architect that is ensuring that all of the many, many different moving pieces fit together in one holistic solution. So as we've seen over the previous days, there are many moving parts that need to be delivered and need to fit together into one solution. So it's important that there is one overall driver that can make the decisions necessary to ensure that it moves ahead. So the other group we have over here, this is this communications and training. So this group not only provides the outreach to the people that are using the platform and the training materials and delivers the training, but they're actually also doing the project support. So they are the ones providing the reports. They are the ones that are also running the instrumentation. So the instrumentation is a set of dashboards that are looking at how the application is being used, from where they're accessing it, what they're accessing, the uptime, the costs of the cloud platform. So very much this group is dealing with everything to do with the administration as well, including the contracts and the recruitment. No, so they're also dealing with the community feedback. So whenever you put the system into operations, it's going to be important that you have clear channels by which the community can get back to you on what's working, what's not working, what needs improving. So this group is also managing the feedback channels. So underneath, we have this one in green. This is the GIS analysis services. And they are providing ad hoc human-driven analysis of different geospatial data sets to answer specific problems. So, for example, where shall I build a fish pond? Do the solar panels work here? Should I be planting this crop or another crop? Value chain analysis. So this group over here are conducting those kinds of services. They're also very important in choosing the right data service. So they will do an evaluation to compare different data sets and then publish those reports. So let's say we have 3 sources of precipitation data. This group here will be doing an analysis and producing a report that will help us to decide under which circumstances we choose which source of precipitation data. They also do some multi-criteria decision analysis, and they also provide standardized methodologies for undertaking particular research. So that could be, for example, identifying distance to market. So they will provide an approach, a design, a methodology that then can be scaled up, and many different groups can apply that methodology to different countries or different parts of a country. Okay, so let me move down to this data cataloging group. In the data cataloging group, they are responsible for the quality of the documentation of data. Is there a clear license? Do we know who to contact? What are the limitations of the data? They are also providing a data categorization. Do we put the data in bucket A under soil or under B, land? They're also managing some of the data governance in terms of ensuring that when data is published, that the head of profession within FAO has cleared it and that it's going in the right place. They also provide services directly to the many people providing data to ensure that they're able to do that. So they provide training. Sometimes they actually draft the metadata, and then they get the final clearance from the owner of that data that the metadata is good. So they themselves don't own any data, but they're absolutely instrumental in ensuring that we have a catalog where all our data can be found of a high quality. Then we have a core data sets section. So FAO produces a lot of data. We have many different units specializing in water or epidemiology or soil, as you've heard today. But there are some underpinning cross-cutting data sets that are important for everybody to have. So examples of that could be the coastline, or it could be the administrative breakdown with a well-defined coding system that everyone is adopting, or it could be a distance to market data set. They're also doing quantitative remote sensing in order to create some of these data sets, and doing they're doing some outsourcing to look at economic status, for example, but if we can obtain those data sets. So they're providing these core underpinning data sets that everybody is needing. Then we have a modeling group, and the modeling group actually understand the science behind the various models. So we're looking at the fertilizer optimization model here. And this group would very much be familiar with the science and the different ways of implementing the models. Is it running on Google Earth Engine? Is it running on a custom model? Is it produced by a particular university? And they so they are basically responsible for ensuring the quality of models and the catalog of models rather than specific data sets. So let's move over to the right-hand side of this screen. So we have applications and user interfaces. So the whole of the agroinformatics platform delivers many different applications to different communities. So this group is responsible for the customization of the services and data to deliver a particular product to a particular community. So the example I've been using is the veterinary services in Kenya for Rift Valley fever. There's a specific customization of the platform to deal with their needs, so their reports, their analysis. They also deal with the overall user interface. So there's a user experience person in there, a user interface design. We not only look at web, but we're also looking at mobile delivery. And we've just started two new interfaces that we'll be working on 2024, which is a virtual reality interface and a chat interface. So this is where the people actually touch the application. They're managing that relationship with the actual users. What else is going on in that group? That's about it. So, and then tabular services, a lot of data comes in table format, or it's derived from statistics, coming from statistics, or derived by zonal analysis of geospatial layers, or some of them we actually pay for. So, for example, the shipments of boats. So that we need a way of ensuring that we have an efficient and effective data warehouse that contains all this tabular data that is also following a set of standards, so it can be convenient to query and use and to perform analysis on. For example, the contrast between the tabular guys and the data and the catalog guys, the tabular guys don't really understand deeply the individual statistics. It's just a stream of data that they need to be able to compile, ensure it's up to date, ensure it's accurate, and assist with the styling, how it's presented. Which information is presented in which ways and the units of measure. So this group is dealing with that. Geospatial services are dealing with everything to do with maps. So that's raster data. So we have lots of raster data coming in. Some of it is coming in tiles that come in daily, monthly, weekly, annually. We do summary of those raster tiles. We build the raster pyramids, and we also then have the services that can draw those maps. So the GeoServer clusters, the wrappers on the COG files, and the analysis services that can summarize the raster images. So how many people in this area, what is the average rainfall, what is the maximum temperature. Those are the kinds of services that are coming out of the geospatial group. The data engineer, again, the geospatial group, they're not familiar with the science. In fact, this right-hand column is very much pure IT. It's mostly IT. Whereas on the left-hand side, there's a much greater understanding of the science behind it all. So the data engineering team's responsible for ensuring that the data keeps flowing in a cost-effective way. So they build the data pipelines. They also have the orchestration. When does the data get updated? What is the trigger for that event? Has somebody uploaded the data? Is there a new piece of data available? So yeah, these guys are just keeping the data flowing. If there's a custom API that's not following a standard and we need to obtain that data, these guys will write the interface to that custom API not following a standard in order to ensure that we can treat it as a data set that everyone else can use. And finally, the DevSecOps, which I talked about a little bit yesterday. So this is development, security, and operations. And they're ensuring that the whole thing is running cost effectively. They're also ensuring that it's secure, so that we can sleep well at night and not wake up with some terrible disaster where something has been hacked or the costs have gone through the roof. So these guys are absolutely critical, and they're supporting all of the groups above in their day-to-day activities. They're also ensuring best practice is followed. Yeah, so I think that's more or less what I wanted to cover here on how we're set up. I suppose we could say a little bit about the cost centers. So each one of these has a cost, clearly. And then you also have another cost, which is the cloud consumption costs. And coming back to the partnerships, so several of these things can be either a partnership between a different area in FAO. So I myself am in the agroinformatics group, so we provide services. But for example, Yusuf has been talking about the soil group. So he would be one of our partners and we would help in some of the automation and the processing. But clearly that's not part of the budgeting that we do to build, run and operate the platform. Yeah, and then some of these, as I've mentioned at the very beginning, are outsourced, especially things that shrink and grow over time. maybe we have a particular large bulk amount of data to produce. Recently, we had to do 100,000 of tiles. And in that case, we outsourced that particular work to a company. And then that was managed by the geospatial services. Okay, so I think I have a lot more slides on this, but I just want a quick heads up on how I'm doing on time. I forgot to set a timer. So I'm not sure if I've spoken too much or how much time I have here to continue. So maybe some quick feedback from the audience if this is relevant and how I'm doing on time.
Paro, I think this is an extremely pertinent slide and information. So if you have more information, you can dig in. I think everyone would agree that this is kind of setting the framework for what we need to set up as part of the process.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. So I'll continue a little bit further on how we're set up. So using us as an example that I hope can provide you some thoughts on how you might want to set things up yourselves. So I can't stress enough the importance of having one catalog that is high quality and contains all of your data. In the end, maybe you're adding a soil data set. The soil data set probably won't stop with fertilizer optimization. You'll be using it in many other circumstances. For example, the prediction of mosquitoes will depend on not only the climate data, but the kind of soil and therefore how wet it is. Having this common base of data catalog is absolutely critical. So the data cataloging group are the group that are responsible for ensuring that we have this. So just a few statistics on what we've currently got. We've got over 2 million layers, 5,000 plus data sets from 210 contributions, 90 federated organizations. So this is another thing about sustainability to some degree. We can't document and put the data in for everyone. So it's important that there are clear workflows that allow partners to complete the metadata themselves with guidance. Otherwise, we'd need an army of people to complete all of the. So it's important. This word federated is very important. And then in terms of the overall metrics of some of the instrumentation that we follow that helps us to know if we're on track or not. So over the last year, so in 2023, our page views tripled. We had 154,000 users access the platform. So that's an 80% increase from 214 countries with a new user increase of 21%. They made 21 billion requests to the platform and consumed 2.7 terabytes of data. Yeah, so that gives you a kind of idea of the sort of metrics that it might be important to be gathering on how the platform is being used. So let me talk a little bit. So sorry, I'll go back one slide. I'm going to go back here. Okay. So the title of this one was Data Catalog Applications, Channels and Subsites. So if you imagine the data catalog is all available data, then we have the applications that I've talked about before. Maybe it's worth talking about a few of them to see if they have any inspiration. So we have one application. So it's built on the same set of services that are underpinning all of these applications to monitor vegetation, crops and droughts in near real time. So this is the agricultural stress index system. And this is just an example of what it does. And you'll see that, here we're able to look in seasons and croplands and look at very specific time periods. So this is an old slide. It's really right up to date, the data that's in this system. Another one I've talked about here is the Rift Valley fever one. So here we have a model that is running on Google Earth Engine that is predicting where the mosquitoes will be likely to be breeding. So in this case, we're then able to pull that data out from our catalog and provide some analysis that will give a level of risk for the outbreak of Rift Valley fever in this case. Another example I've been talking quite a bit about is water accounting. So here we can bring data from irrigation, from the crop people, from actual evapotranspiration, and that helps you to get an overall picture of the supply, demand, and flows and use of water. So this is another kind of way of combining the data. We have one on the global livestock environmental assessment model. Another example here. Another one which is the emissions from the greenhouse gas emissions from animal products. The global soil information system, which is one that Yusuf here is managing. And then we also have a climate risk toolbox. So that's a way of looking at an area on the planet Earth and then getting some kind of due diligence assessment report on the impacts of a project before you embark on a project. So in different climate change scenarios, are you ensuring that your project design is useful? We have another one on the ecosystem restoration. So it's a decade of ecosystem restoration at the moment. So this is monitoring various indicators to show how they are doing on meeting their targets. Okay, so that's those are all applications. I want to talk a little bit about what we call channels. So within each application, so this application is the hand-in-hand one we see on the screen. Here's a metadata record on the right-hand side, and you'll see we have crops, agricultural stress, and seasonal indicators. And then we have this actual data set. So each one of these is a channel, and part of the governance team is to decide which data goes in which channel. And at the very end, or the leaf node of this tree, if you like, is a data item. So in this case, it's agricultural stress index near real time. You can see from the metadata that it's a decadal, so that's every 10 days, it's 1 kilometer resolution, it's global. Okay, so then that brings us a little bit to the hierarchy and relationships. So the way that we're managing things is we have these organizations. So an organization could be, for example, the Ministry of the Central Bureau of Statistics in Mexico, or it could be the FAO Soil Group, so they essentially own a set of data sets. They have a set of users that are members of that organization, and they therefore have certain privileges. They can either create content, they can view content, or they can publish content. Each data set also has a lot of resources. So one data set might have many expressions. So it could be an actual data API endpoint. It could be a web mapping service. There are many different expressions of these of a data set, different ways you can consume that data. And then finally, there are views. So the views is the best presentation, which style, which legend, which colors. Is it big dots? Is it pictures of planes for airports? This is all to do with this sort of styling, which is part of how the data set is viewed. So this is the overall structure of how we manage the catalog. So the kinds of roles I've sort of hinted at them just now. We have a super admin for the whole platform. Each organization has an administrator, and they are really the person that is accountable for any data that's published by that organization. So they have the ability to add, edit, delete, publish unpublished data sets. So whereas an editor can create these data sets, but they can't publish them. Members can view private restricted data sets, which the general public can't. And a visitor will only be able to see data sets that are public made public by the administrator. Okay, let me just do this one last slide, talking about the publishing procedures. So this is very sort of file specific, but I hope you can draw some analogies for the work that you'll be doing led out of Calro. So before any data is published, every data set must have a sponsor. In our case, a sponsor is a FAO staff member. So even if the data is coming from the Mexican Bureau of Statistics, we still need somebody who is a staff member that is accountable for that data being published. So no sponsor, no inclusion in the platform. So the sponsor can then contact we have an internal process to seek clearance to have that data added to the data to the platform. So there are two clearances then that need to be obtained. One is by the head of profession. So if the data set is on indigenous peoples, then that group needs to be contacted. If it's pesticides and fertilizers, then those groups would need to be contacted. And this is to ensure the alignment with those guidelines and objectives, and also to, in the case that there are conflicting data sets, that they're documented well to explain why these two data sets are different. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And this basically gives us the overall approval that that data set can be included in the available data sets. Yeah, so the data responsibility is then with this FAO staff member, even though they might not be taking the action of completing the metadata record, building the pipelines, they are still accountable for the data that's published. Okay, so in sometimes we set up an organization. So you could imagine that we might set up an organization for CalRO to allow them to have full control over data that they publish. So here, again, the data catalog team will set up basically the organization, issue the credentials to an administrator, and then that administrator can then delegate and add people to their own organization. Yeah, so I've talked about these last two down here. Then in terms of overall costing, what we generally do is to ensure that if the data is related to food and agriculture and relevant, and it's following standards, we just go ahead and publish the data with no cost. Sometimes we're asked to promote data sets on the platform, or data sets are very large. So by very large, we typically mean something over a terabyte, or are complex. So they might have a custom workflow required to deal with a custom API that's non-standard. In those cases, we charge back to the costs that we incur to host the data and to write a custom data engineering pipeline to connect the data. Okay, I'm going to stop here for now and hand the floor back. And hopefully you found some of that useful in how you might want to set up a sustainable a project to deliver and then sustain the results.
Carl, thank you very much. There was very interesting topics there. I think you showed us all the different areas that we need to focus on as part of the project. Especially the training aspect. We have many organizations all with their own kind of input and working methodologies and scope. So it's going to be important that we bring them together and align them. You mentioned a number of the points that we need to consider in the different areas, the team building, the team composition, especially if it's going to be a federated, which is inevitably going to be a federated approach. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions on this particular session? Yes. Do we have another microphone? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Rich presentation from FAO. Thank you very much. You know, I'm not really a question to you, but I general to Carlo, because there is an ongoing project which is led by ISRIC and contributed by ICRAF, IUCN, ASARECA. And then it is all about land soil crop information system in 3 countries, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Then I think, you know, just recently we developed data catalog for soils and crops in Kenya, which is led by Carlo, and then digital soil mapping trainings and then everything given by Carlo. And then now I think I have seen very interesting thing happening in at the FAO. And then maybe if we invite another partner, they may have also similar things. So how are you really going to coordinate all these things coming from different direction? And then how do you really regulate the whole process in Kenya? Because the same thing is happening. It's an ongoing active project, which is going on in Carlo. I haven't heard even anyone presenting about it, but it is a very relevant thing by which we were asked in that project to contribute all our soil and crop information to Carlo. And then we are really talking about the mandate of Carlo, even in managing, regulating all these kind of things. But I haven't heard much about that project and then how that project could even be used to leverage all this, partnership into the system. It's not for FAO, but I don't know how Carlo going to look at it. Thanks.
Yes, yes. I was interested in two areas. The first one is the agroinformatics diagram. I see that the modeling team is like one. I don't know if it's possible to split it into two so that we have the domain expert models, those ones who specialize in doing like decision support models. And then we also have this other modeling team that focuses more on like data science models. Maybe is it possible to split the two so that they can work but be able to communicate? And then number two is I don't know if I got it right, but there's somewhere you mentioned charging a data. I don't know how you would advise the same. For example, an institution like Calro would most likely not be charging its data because it's a public good. But within your framework, how would you advise the same in case just something I'm thinking? I don't know if it's possible, whether it could maybe be adopted in a framework like a social enterprises framework so that in case there's something incurred, this cost can be taken down to someone who requests that service.
Thank you very much for those questions. So starting with the first question on the modeling, very much it can be separated. The box is really a representative of a role and responsibility. In fact, we only have one person in there that's really coordinating that work, and it's federated and delegated to the actual specialized units within FAO. So maybe the epidemiology units. So it's more a coordination role, but it's important that role, that they have the knowledge to be able to evaluate the models and ensure that they fit in with our general criteria of how to include them in the platform. So yeah, absolutely, it can be split and could well be split. Then, sorry, talking about the charging. So the one thing that will happen to us is that there are 1 million people wanting to add 10,000 data sets, and we have to prioritize and cost with our fixed budgets what we're able to add to the platform. So let's say you've got 5 different soil maps and you want you need to know where to start. So we needed some way to prioritize those. So anything that can be delegated to the owner of the data, so it minimizes the impact on our resources, we can move ahead on. So we give them the tools to be independent, to set up those data pipelines. And they're essentially free. unless they have big costs on us. So we have to do some custom work. We have to do some very specific non-standard training. These hosting costs. So I'm not sure how that analogy could work in your project, but I would imagine in the end for the data engineering, you will have a fixed budget that you will need to work within, and you will have more people wanting to contribute models and data to your platform than your capacity to be able to add those. So maybe it's not financial, maybe it's a prioritization model that you would need to ensure that you stay within the time and money available to your operational platform.
Thank you, Carl. And on that note, I think we're going to take a health break now for 15 minutes. We're approximately 1 hour behind. So we need to, on the next set of presentations, we need to shrink them, please. Keep them to point. The next presentation after the tea break will be on legal and ethical considerations. So on that, thank you very much for everyone. Thank you so much, Carl. Very interesting. Could everyone give him a round of applause? And we'll meet again in 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Hello, hello. Could we bring everyone back and we restart because we're still quite far behind? Check what actually they said. Hey, so we're gonna restart the sessions. So the next session is legal and ethical considerations. And our colleague from Calro, Patricia, she will give us an introduction on how Calro deal with these things. Then to speed up the process, we've actually going to skip the FAO presentation on this, and then we'll move into session 4 after the legal considerations. Thank you so much, Patricia. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope we are all refreshed after the tea break. Is it working? Okay. Yeah, so my name is Patricia Ngutu. I'm the Corporation Secretary and in charge of legal services at Calro. And for today, the title of my presentation is the Calro Legal Ethics on Data Policy. So I'll start with the presentation outline. So I'll take you through an introduction to Calro. I think we've been having presentations since Tuesday, but we've not heard so much about, so who is Calro? What exactly do we do? So I'll take you through that. I'll also look at the function of the legal office when it relates to data management, the legal framework which we are employing, the current data management framework, the policies which we are currently using, and a way forward. Then let's start with the first slide. The next slide, sorry. So from this slide, you can see a pictorial presentation of some of the products that we have as Calro. And to start us off, Calro was created through an act of parliament. That is the number 17, Act number 17 of 2013. So we were created on January of 2013 and established on the 1st of July, 2014. And as my colleague, Dr. Makelo had already mentioned, this was through a merger of 4 former institutes. We had the KESREF, CRF, we also had the TRFK, and the former CARI, and they were all merged to form what we now know as Calro. So when you read through the preamble of the Act, it talks of Calro being formed to provide for organs of the organization. So organs here, we are referring to the institutes. She had mentioned the 17 institutes that we have under Calro and the 51 centers. So those are the organs. We also have a secretariat, and the Act was formed for those purposes, and also for the coordination of agricultural research activities in Kenya and other connected purposes. So moving on to the next slide. So according to the Act, this is what is put down as our mandate. our mandate is to promote, streamline, coordinate, and regulate research in crops, livestock, genetic resources, biotechnology, and animal diseases. And we also expedite equitable access to research information. This is also partly the reason why we are here today. Resources and technologies, and to promote the application of research findings and developed technologies in the field of agriculture and livestock. So now that we've already understood what the mandate of KALRO is and its functions, now we look at, for us as legal office, what exactly do we do? So we are established for the purpose of providing legal advice. This is to the departments and to the organization at large on various legal aspects that affect us, and also ensuring effective legal representation so that we are compliant. We had a colleague here on Tuesday from the Office of the Data Protection Commission, and she was talking about the Data Protection Act 2019. And you see, for us to comply with that, it is the legal office which will be championing compliance with such like acts and other relevant legislation. And we also negotiate on behalf of the organization so that we are able to obtain favorable terms in stakeholder engagements. So this is a legal framework that we are currently employing as KALRO. First and foremost, of course, the Constitution of Kenya, which is the foremost law that we are applying. And the presentation from ODPC already covered like the relevant legislation as relates to privacy and data. That is Article 31 of the Constitution of Kenya. We also comply with the Data Protection Act 2019. It's a recent act, so we are still also in the process of complying with a lot of what is provided under the act. But for a start, we're proud to say that we are registered as a data controller and also as a data processor with the ODPC, and our registration is still current. So we've already talked about also the KALRO Act. So the KALRO Act is the one which gives us our functions and our mandate, as we had already talked about, to collect data on research programs undertaken in pursuance of the organization's that should be in pursuance of the organization's purposes. Then we also have policies, and I should be mentioning here the data management policy first, but our data management policy is still in draft, so we are still refining it, and we're working on fast tracking it. And I believe like workshops such as this will give us valuable information that we can still incorporate within that policy. But in the meantime, we have a functional KALRO research policy, which we are currently implementing. And we also have a KALRO IP policies. And we also employ use of like non-disclosure agreements. And we also have other types of agreements like confidentiality agreements and data sharing agreements, which we use to disseminate data. So next slide. So on the KALRO research policy, it has very clear guidelines, and it emphasizes the importance of using appropriate scientific designs to ensure that we have data credibility and accuracy. Dr. Kamau had mentioned something about the accuracy of the data in the previous session. Timely analysis, maintaining of confidentiality in research involving human subjects, so that if it's it's data we have obtained from human subjects, there are ways we should manage it. They should give us their consent when we are using this data, and they should know how the data is being used and who amongst our officers is handling the data. It also emphasizes the importance of retaining research data in accordance with best practices, as well as just how do you manage this data? How do you retain research data? And for how long are we retaining this data? For how many years post, maybe if it's a collaboration, if the data came to us through a collaboration, we are able to tell the tenure of how long we'll be able to keep the data. So it also has provisions on the handling of the data. So like when it's a collaborative research, and also collection and handling of restricted data. Because like we were talking about, there's some data which is restricted, like data relating to personal information. Like we already learned about how you can have personal information like mobile phone data, you can have ID numbers, and we don't want to give that information away. So how to just make them anonymous so that no one else is able to access private information that has come to us for purposes of research. Then the IP policy also has provisions relating to data, and the IP policy will mainly focus on data generated by KALRO and its employees and how it's treated, and it will talk about aspects on disclosure. How do you disclose the data to the organization, even if it's data that is coming to us from a collaborative project? How do we administer such data? Commercialization and benefit sharing is also mentioned here. Someone had mentioned on Tuesday, how are we making sure that the data that we are collecting is also beneficial to the person who provided the data. The person who provided the data also needs to benefit if we will be benefiting from that. And it also covers aspects of dispute handling, because sometimes there'll be disputes that will arise from data, how it was created, who is the owner, and everything about that. So that is covered in KALRO IP policy in detail. Then we also use agreements as part of our data management tools. So we've entered into data sharing agreements with some organizations. We also have non-disclosure agreements, especially when we're still in the initial stages of collaborations. And at that point, probably we still don't know if we'll be able to have project that will be running from such discussions, but we need to keep such discussions confidential. So we use like non-disclosure agreements. We also recently developed a consent for use of images in photography. And I think for those of us who keep up to date with the news, there's a time where there was this case of this lady from Machakos University, and her image had been used by the university to market one of their courses. It wasn't even a course that she was undertaking, because she's a student at that university. But the course was something different, and she had not given consent for the university to use her image. And the courts ruled in her favor that her right to privacy had been infringed on. And the university was asked to take down the images, and they were supposed to pay her damages. And from the courts, we've seen so many of such decisions of late. Therefore, it calls for us to be more careful in how we are handling data and such like. So we have that consent form which we developed, and the person whose photograph is being taken, they're made to understand their rights. So it has the rights and duties of KALRO, and also the rights of the person whose photograph will be used in whatever material, and how it will be used. And we also expressly state that if there's any benefit that will accrue to us, they'll also be a part of it. So with that in mind, what is our way forward as KALRO? So for us, we want to continue with this conversation on data governance and management systems. I think like from how we have, from the discussions that we've had so far, we can see there's still gaps that we need to address in terms of KALRO can be having some data which is very relevant to some of the research that is being conducted by different bodies. And at the end of the day, it will benefit not just KALRO, but the whole nation and things like that. So how do we ensure that the way this data is being accessed, the way it is being managed, it is in compliance with the law first, and that we have taken care of all the considerations that we are required to take, whether it is protecting the data, how it is being handled, how it is being retained, how it is being used. So we're looking forward to continue with this conversation. Salim had already mentioned that there's already another engagement which will be taking place next week, so that we are able to start developing a roadmap of how to use this data in a way that we are not infringing on anyone's rights, and we are in compliance with the law. Another way forward is also to just for us to fast track the KALRO data management policy. Like I've said, it's in draft, and the other policies that I've already mentioned, they really like cross-reference a lot on the KALRO data management policy, even though it is in draft. So we want to just fast track that, and finally we'll be able to implement it and make sure that it is being managed in a way that is in compliance with the law, and specifically also with the Data Protection Act, as we were being informed on Tuesday. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. You can find my contacts there. Yeah, so thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was extremely interesting and something we all need to take into consideration. So we're going to try and collapse the next sessions by FAO and kind of combine some of the legal and ethical considerations that FAO also has to abide by into also the monitoring and evaluation. And I'm not quite sure who's going to lead next. Who's put this presentation up now? We're a little bit advanced. Yeah, let's just jump straight into the KALRO communication and outreach, and we'll return back to the FAO, and we'll just collapse our two sessions into one. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I'm going to present to you outreach and user adoption under the communication and outreach. My name is Florida Maritim. I'm the Assistant Director, Corporate Communications, KALRO. Communication and outreach across, in a simple term, is the interpretation and translating of complex research findings that we all develop from the research and format it into a language or a context that anyone can understand, from an expert to an non-expert. So when it comes to communications, there are so many activities that go on, just like what you can see. There are messages, there are media, there are outreach, there are target audience, there are public relations. Those are in communications. And also there is marketing part of it. Just at a glance, I know you can see those cartoons there. One is standing on the other side saying, I can see 9. The other one is saying, I can see 6. And in the real sense, each one of them is right. That is how communication is. The scientist will tell you, me, I'm right in my perspective. I've done my research, I've undertaken it, and I prove it is right. A scientist from FAO will come and say, yes, me, I've undertaken the research and I'm finding it, and I know it is right. And an scientist will come and say, now, where will I fall? All of you are right. And the essence of us coming together today as partners is to be able to harmonize and agree. Can we see this number at the 8 and 9 or 6 and agree? So that when you are presenting to the target audience, those are the farmers and maybe policymakers, maybe the extensionists, we are all in agreement. Even 7, one can see 7 on the other side. The other one can see number 5 on the other side. Those are variations which any human, it comes with the human engagement because we are in different environments. But when we come together, we have to agree and see things from the same angle because we are targeting the same direction. We are moving on the same direction and targeting the same farmers, because I have to believe, as we are sitting here, all of us, we are almost targeting the same audience. Like in Kenya, we are targeting Kenyans. And because this event is a Kenyan, they are audience in Kenya, the farmers, the extension, and the rest. I don't want to concentrate so much because I know my colleagues have spoken so much on the stakeholders. There are so many stakeholders who are interested with this information. And given that there are those who will be interested in a narrow end, so you need to package their information to fit them. And as we were sitting here, at some point, I sat and say, now what is this? It looks like I cannot understand. I might have not been the right audience to sit here, but when you are scientist to scientist, you'll speak to your language very nicely. But when it comes to farmers, whatever they see is very, very different. And they'll be interested, just like what Salim said on the first day. Farmers will only be interested in what benefit them to improve their production. The policymakers will be interested based on the policymakers, because we have two different kinds of policymakers. We have the politicians. The politicians will be interested to what is really going to impact their people so that they can vote for them. But there are those Democrats. They'll be interested to see how can we improve either our economy, how can we improve our soil in the country, how can we impact on our people in the country. And those are the people who will be advising even the president on how we are moving on in the types of soil. I didn't want to be late because there are so many stakeholders. When you see that drawing, you will be able to see that at the end of the day, the target audience is the users. Either it is a farmer, either they are university students, because I know they will also be interested with some of your papers which are going to come out here. Somebody tell me here, I've written this number of papers, and you know your target audience. But as a farmer will not be interested with your papers at all. So you really have to package your information for the various target audience. I want to believe also there'll be business people. And they'll be interested to see how vibrant is soil being, it can support, for example, the fertilizer entity. They'll be interested on how they can really benefit in ensuring that whatever they are doing, business they are doing, how can we work together with the scientists so that whatever we are doing in their manufacturing area is really fitting what the scientists are coming out with. So there is a lot of integrating of various audience based on the interest. Now, under CalRO, we have different channels of communications. And one of the channels that we work in, just in a nutshell, because at the end of the day, CalRO is a hub of information. We have so huge information coming from partners and all the scientists, just like Dr. Kamau told you, in only soil alone, we have around 80 scientists. And you can imagine that is only soil. There are other scientists who are there, and they are also partnering. We have 17 institutes, and all of them, in one way or another, they have partners and working in different products. That is, it can either be varieties, livestock varieties, it can either be pests and diseases, it can be either environment, and all of them have this information in a hub called CalRO. How will you be able to access that information? So we have so many ways of accessing that information. Some will work in physical visits. We have farmers who come direct to CalRO. We have formal communication. We send out communications. They send us communications. We also have digital platforms, number of them, so many. When you go to CalRO website, you'll be able to see, and we have been able to put together, because we have realized also there are so many tools, small tools in communication, in ICT. So if the small ones, how can somebody access really that one? And we have 100 of them. So what we agreed, we have to put together as one and have it as KIP. So we have an app. When you go to Google Play Store, you'll be able to see all the CalRO apps that are there, including the help, including the other tools that have been developed by the ICT team in one folder. Another thing is the mainstream media. We work closely with the mainstream media to ensure that whatever we do, it reaches to the wider audience. And when we work with media, it is not, you don't leave them to control themselves. And that is the essence of developing that corporate communication department, so that media does not just come and pick information from where they just want, because they'll always write their own things, because they are not in the environment. But because we work closely together, we shall be able to give the public the right information that they will be able to benefit from. We also have social media. I don't want to be lettered so much on that. And I want to speak about the YouTube. The YouTube, at the moment, we are online. We are actually mainstreaming, we are online. Whoever wants to post any comment, they can really and they have been responding on that, even including this meeting that is going on now. We have also events. There are so many events that we have been organizing together with partners. In most cases, we don't work alone. We either work with local partners or international partners, and we have a number of them. The benefits of events, we have found out that in most cases, there are events which really make impact to the research that our scientists are working on. Because events bring together either scientists and non-scientists, and these are the forums that we exchange information. These are forums that scientists can really present what they have, and the others react to what the scientists have been doing. So it is a forum that we really interact with the public. It is a forum where we interact with the policymakers. It is a forum where we interact with partners. Now, under CALRO, we have an established corporate communications department which supports the scientists. We have a developed corporate communication policies and strategies, which also we support the projects that are in CALRO. We also align our activities to the CALRO strategic plan, which will always inform where we want to go to. We have sources of knowledge. That is the key messaging now. This is where the source of information will come from, and these are our scientists. We don't work alone as corporate communication or the media. We work with our scientists. And in most cases, any project that comes to CALRO, we really insist that it should have a component of communication and feasibility. That way, the project will not just end like that. I just had my colleague who was seated somewhere there and saying, we had developed this match, huge. And in most cases, if you are keen enough, somebody in CALRO will tell you, I never heard about that project. What happened? So we also target projects that they should, our own scientists internally, because we are across all the countries, we are across the country. Our scientists should be able to champion their own and support their own research by other scientists. For example, if Dr. Kamau is doing research in soil, a scientist in Alupe who is not a soil scientist should be able to support him and say, yes, I'm aware that Dr. Kamau is undertaking this research in this area and should be able to speak, even if it is not everything, but at least basic. And that is what we are championing as corporate communication. We also have media and communication partnership. We have partners that we have really agreed to work together to ensure that we don't miss out in ensuring that we send the right information, because we have various media, but there are those who are partners so that we can work together for the same objective. We also have communication channels and platforms, several of them. We have trainings in terms of communication. We train our scientists to communicate, that is science communication, to be able to communicate what they are doing, to be able to write a story, at least, not a scientific story, but a story which can be consumed by a non-scientist. We also have feedback mechanism, which will help us really either improve our services, because we are a service delivery institution. And this one is very important because it will give us feedback on how we can improve our way of doing research. We also have a lot of public trust in the country. At least we believe that CALRO is one of the leading institutions which can be trusted with whatever they are doing in research. Now, in this project, soil management, we are going to propose that we do communication engagement, which is very, very important, because if we fail to do community engagement, that is where the soil is. And community engagement include even the livestock, because we don't concentrate only on the crops, but also the livestock, the ASAL areas. Because in most cases, we have been seeing so many projects, and at times we leave the ASAL areas, and yet that is where most of our research eventually is going to go because of the climate change. And also the population of where the country has been so populated is going to go down and down. And where are we going to get our food? It is in the ASAL areas. So as we target our soils, as we do what we are going to do, we also have to consider that those areas which have not been really well utilized under agriculture. And maybe they have been doing only livestock. Maybe it is high time we realize that even those areas are very productive. And then under partnership, we are going to work together with the partners that are going to come on board, especially for the visibility of what the scientists are doing. Because scientists cannot just be doing a lot and keeping it either in journals, either in their offices, either in the database that they have, but it is not reaching anywhere. So it is high time that we are going to work together with the scientists as partners. As before even partnering with the media, we have to partner with our own scientists internally and also partner and the other communication partners from the other institutions so that we can establish a bigger reach. Technology integration. This one I'm talking to mostly to the ICT team. If you are going to integrate the technology, these are digital platforms. What is the best practice to apply when it comes to digital platforms? They have to be very, very simple. Very simple inside that if I'm not an ICT savvy, I should be able to access those tools easily. Do not imagine that because you are an ICT savvy, you are just going to use the same language. And you know, according to you, it might be very simple, but for a farmer outside there, it is very complicated. So use the simplest user face for the farmers, for the policymakers also, because when you use a very complex tool, it makes you not to use that system. So you really have to use the simplest user faces, which will be very simple for the farmers to access if it is a farmer, and even for those extension officers, if it is an extension officers, and even what will make me to really contribute to that database is how it is easily used. If you make a very complicated user database, it will be very difficult even for those who are going to partner with you to input into it. And it has to be very inclusive when you are developing it so that they accept and they feel that they are part and parcel of those tools. Trainings is very key. I'll not impact to that so much because as you develop those technology integrations tools, I believe that you are also going to concentrate on training so that it will be very easy for them to use. Now, on policy advocacy, it is very, very important. Kenyan soil belongs to a country, and therefore, advocacy is very, very important for buy-in, for support, for anything that is going to be implemented as a country. Be part of it by ensuring that you involve the policymakers. It is very, very simple. When you bring them, let them understand what you are doing, work with them. They'll be the one to really either push or kill the technology that you are going to develop. Now, going forward, we have to have, just like Patricia, what Patricia said, this one will govern us so that also it protects all of us wherever we shall be. And also it protects our international partners so that we don't mess ourselves by ensuring that we have the right data sharing policies, which Patricia has said. We have to really support communication and outreach activities for the purpose of adoption. We have to build a lot of strong partnership. This one is very important. Partnership in, when I put the word strong, is trust also. So that wherever I am, if I'm a FAO scientist, I'll be able to call Dr. Kamau and tell him, this is what we feel like we are going to do, and it is going to benefit the country in ABCD. Because I believe these activities are not about competition, it is about making a better farmer in the countries. We have to have continuous communications and media engagement, which is very, very important. I want to believe that some of the activities that are in the project will be media engagements, communications engagement, and regular consultation and continuous communication. For anything to be adapted, you have to do continuous communication. Even if the projects will end at some point, we believe that the implementing institutions will be able to have tools for sustainability. And I think I'm through with my presentation. I just want to finish by saying that innovation is not about creating the function, it is about affecting the adoption of the technology. Remember that effective communication and stakeholder engagement are key to increasing the visibility and adoption of soil digital tools. By reaching out to diverse stakeholders and emphasizing the practical benefits, you can create a positive impact on soil health management at scale. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It's going to be a crucial element, communication and outreach as part of this process, although we do need the platform to start with. So we're actually going to just return back to session 3 and session 4. Yusuf from FAO will say a few words on GLOSIS and NSIS, and also a little bit on data policy. And then afterwards, he's going to hand over to Carl to talk about data management. Yusuf, are you there?
I'm here. Stuart. Thank you. So we merged the session to two sessions, to session 3 and session
we've
4.
merged legal and ethics and monitoring and evaluation. Thanks.
Yeah. I want to say some words about the data policies. Just to highlight the importance of a good data policy, I would like to say some words about the existing data policy that we have at FAO. It's called FAO GSP data policy. It was developed by the partners, by the GSP, by FAO. It was endorsed back in 2017 and then amended in 2019. It's an endorsed data policy to be used for data and information shared by the partners within GLOSIS, the Global Soil Information System, and SoilStat. SoilStat is a statistics platform. It's very softly formulated. It's the very first principle of the policy is the respect that given to the existing national data policies. It says every existing ownership right to share data, soil data are respected. And the data policy gives data owners full control over their own data, own national data. And but it can be original data like point data, so profile databases, or that any kind of point data, as well as drive data within the GLOSIS ecosystem. So this is the data policy to set the ground rules at global scale, but can be used as a base to formulate national ones. For example, Kenya take it and formulate and reproduce the data policy at national scale to govern the data sharing, data ownership within the country. A good example is Turkey. FAO, together with the country, developed a national action plan for sustainable soil management together with a data policy. And this data policy was mainstream within the government, adopted by the parliament, then signed by the president. So it became more authoritative, and it works very well. It was a big issue, data sharing within the country. Now all the institutions, all the data holders, data holding institutions are kind of obliged to share data. The data that generated using public money, public resources. We have the data policy. It's endorsed. It can be a base. It's very generic and general one, but it can be a base that we heard from the speaker in the previous session, that there's a need in Kenya to have a good data policy to govern, to set the ground rules on data ownership and data sharing. Shall I say some words about monitoring and evaluation?
Yeah, if you could very briefly.
Yeah. About monitoring evaluation, how I take the monitoring word here, like monitoring of soil health in this context. I talk about GLOSIS and SoilStat earlier. They are being developed in a federated manner, connecting national soil information systems and cataloging data shared by the countries through their own platforms. And SoilStat to monitor the trends in soil health domain using indicators, select soil health indicators. So GLOSIS and national soil information systems, ANSYS, to provide data and statistics to SoilStat to monitor these soil indicators, to monitor soil health as well. And specifically, for example, within the soil framework, we have a monitoring component bringing proximal sensing as a tool for monitoring select soil properties in a more cost and time efficient way. So the monitoring is important to understand the trends for soils, especially in soil health. So we are trying to leverage the new technologies. It's not new, but it has a promising future this proximal sensing soil spectroscopy. We are trying to put soil spectroscopy and proximal sensing to start monitoring soil resources at FAO.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. Carl, do you have something to add? I understand you were going to talk about data management. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a couple of topics that I just wanted to wrap up that I didn't manage to cover before. So let me share my screen. Oh, too many things open. So I just wanted to add a few words to the excellent presentation from Florida on the user profiling. So we talked about stakeholders, but then there's also the users. So in my diagram this morning, we had the user experience. And one technique that I think is very useful is for each one of the classes of users of this system. So it could be the end farmer, it could be the person authorizing the distribution of fertilizers, it could be someone reporting back on the impact of the project, that we take these two steps. So the first step on the left-hand side is to create some kind of persona. And they sort of reflect an average person, right the way down to describing their education level, what they're expecting to get out of the system, the stresses in their life, do they have time to use it, to the needs, what are they expecting to get out of the system. And this really helps to keep yourself focused on delivering value to that user in the user experience. So for each one of the users of the system, this technique is quite useful. Once you have the user defined, then and you've also defined the task they're trying to achieve using the system, another good technique is to map out the journey. So their journey through the system, how are they going to use it? So these two steps help to keep the project focused and on track to deliver an actual impact, but they also then generate some performance indicators or some evaluation of the project, because we can look at the journey that the user expected to take and ensure that we've delivered something that has allowed them to undertake that journey. So it's a good sort of performance metric on the way forward. Yeah, so let me just have a look. I want to also cover a little bit about data management. So yesterday I talked about the different formats of data and the fact that some of them are automated, some of them are manual one-off processes. So let me just fill the screen in. So the way that we currently have the system set up is we've talked about this tabular group and this geospatial, which is basically vector plus raster. And though architecturally what we have is this piece of software called the Table Manager. And this is managing the ingestion and the process of the data that goes into the data catalog and is then styled and viewed. Yes?
Do you mind if I interrupt you there? You're getting very technical.
Okay,
we're very still much at the conceptual level of how to put all the pieces together.
Sure.
Do you have any other slides on the high level kind of how you put it together? That would be very beneficial. Otherwise,
no,
I think
have any slides on that specific topic. These slides are quite technical.
Yeah, I see.
Maybe one thing that I'll just jump from this one slide I have on the screen is the importance of a contract between the data supplier and the system itself. So in each one of those systems I showed earlier, they result in a contract. The contract at an IT level is specifying the exact formats, the delivery, the checks, and therefore the system can be automated to ensure that the data is compliant with all those checks and keeping it up to date. So as we identify the catalog of suppliers of data, it will be important to specify this contract which defines the data engineering pipeline. Okay.
Thank you very much. And I think we'll definitely have to come back to that kind of aspect on contracts once we get to that point.
Yeah, the only other thing I just wanted to show a few slides on what instrumentation might look like in terms of monitoring and evaluation. So we have a couple of instrumentation dashboards. This one is the users of the platform. So you can see where they're coming from, what they're looking at, and various statistics about the people using the platform. Another one is to see the operation of the services. So here we're looking at which data sets are most consumed. We can see the number of requests, and maybe also it's useful for monitoring the operational performance. Is it busy on a Saturday? Is it busy on a Friday evening? And help us to fine tune which data sets need to be optimized. And then this is looking at the targets of which country is requesting data from which other country, which is again a useful piece of instrumentation. This is monitoring the quality of the data warehouse, of the catalog, sorry, so the completion of the data sets, and compliance with our internal tests. So yeah, they're just a few words that I wanted to say on that. They were just thoughts that I hadn't managed to complete earlier.
Carl, thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll come back to harvest a lot of your knowledge at this point. Thank you so much. And we are now going to try and go to the more interesting and discussional element of the session, which is the last one, discussion on platform governance and how we're going to put all the pieces together. Now, we don't actually have a format for this, and Mary Agnes is going to have to help me now on how to move forward, basically. So over to you on next steps.
Okay, well, actually, I think the two of us would be good because I'm not a technical person. I'm just an idea person, and you are more technical, and FAO is more technical. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. So I think I've talked to quite a lot of you coming to saying, okay, how do we move forward with that? How do we organize groups? We have so many people involved here, so many different institutions, but I think what would be important is to start with Calro. We can see that there's a lot going on at Calro. Calro already has a lot of partnership with a lot of these institutions. So the idea is to, and maybe, I'll call some of the people from Calro who want to talk here. Unfortunately, Salim is not there. And, to the importance of this, he's currently talking to, CES Pets. This morning was with the ministry talking exactly about these fertilizer optimization. So, can we have an idea of what Calro has identified as some of the groups that we need to bring together, and what's the need at their end? What exists that could be leveraged, and where do they feel they need support? Particularly, we've heard that maybe there was some capacity buildings needed, human resources needed. And really also, how do we separate these elements from, how do we go towards the African Union Summit, which I know is very soon, but is really a good way to showcase that we can all work together and that we can have some great outputs if we all work together, because we already have a lot going on. And then thinking through a little bit more longer term on this great platform. So I don't know who wants to start.
Can I just say, Carl, could you put up your slide on the blocks and the teams that FAO has? Is that possible?
Sure. Let me just share my screen.
Could you show that presentation?
Slide.
And going back also to one other slide that was really good from you, that was showcasing how, this kind of thinking of insights and what the needs. Salim really also emphasized the needs yesterday from the government in the short run. about advising their policies. So if we can also think of some of the building blocks within the next 6 months in these terms, I think that would be very useful. So thanks.
Yeah, I think the question that Carl was asking is who are your users and what do they actually need should drive how you design this platform. Because this is not an academic research paper. It's not, I have soil maps, here you go. It's, I'm a government, I need to make decision on next year's fertilizers and I'm buying millions of dollars worth of stuff. Am I buying the right fertilizer? Or I'm a farmer and I want to buy fertilizer. What do I buy for my land and crop type? So I think this is what we need to take it from the need back to how am I generating it for the people? So there's two questions here. One is, what does Calor already have in terms of these teams and how can other people in this room help them? And the second is, how do we get to answering the questions that the policymaker and the farmer actually need? What do I buy next week? I have X amount of money. I need to increase my production, not decrease my production because I'm buying the wrong fertilizer. Thank you. So who wants to take a stab at this? Simon, we've not heard you talk, have we?
Yeah, maybe come here.
Different in terms of looking at this.
Yeah, thank you, Maria Agnes. I think based on this slide that we are seeing, I think we can pull a lot from it. But as we have been going on with the workshop, I've just been listening to the various presentation and trying to pull out some of the possible codes that we might have, because I think that would be the first point that we can start identifying basically from this room who can do what. And that slide describes quite a lot of what we need to do. But for me, I had identified that we can have different codes. Maybe I'll just list them, then we can debate on them. So of course, the priority one is the data, because developing the platform, I'm sure we have enough ICTs, not only at Caro, but from all the institutions that are represented here to come up with the platform. But the data, that is very key, because if we have a very good platform without the data, then we don't go anywhere. So Maria Agnes, the first one I would want us to maybe deliberate is to identify the persons and institutions in the room who would want to get involved in on the data aspect. And Stuart, I want to say that one of your colleagues presented quite a lot of information that was really good. Well, I think for FAO, you have no option. You are in that group. Yeah. So, guys, I think maybe we can have a discussion and see who else wants to probably join us. Maybe the data code based on the presentations that we had. So, who has data that is usable for the platform? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because we identified that when it comes to the soil data, we do have some data that is available, but it has some gaps. So whatever data we all have, we just need to be able to bring it out so that we see whether we can use it or we have gaps. But as teams probably think of who has whatever data, is to appreciate other different codes that might come out of these. And on the second one, in terms of, yes, Maria Agnes, you want to say something?
No, finish, don't worry.
All right. People have mentioned the aspect of capacity building. And for this, we're talking of being able to create the models that we need for the platform. So that's a very key aspect where we need to identify institutions that can assist in terms of capacity building for that. And we've mentioned a lot in terms of partnerships. Yes, we're saying we have existing partnership, but probably we need to bring it down to the partnership level for the system that we are trying to come up with now. And also an important aspect is on the technical expertise, and this is on the scientist side, because we have quite a lot of them when it comes to the soil avenue. But we were discussing earlier with a few of the teams here, and we feel that there's a gap there that needs to be very well addressed, because the relationship between the system and the data will majorly be affected by the availability of the data and how these scientists will be able to help in modeling and integration of the same. And last but not least, we also need to see the partners who can be helpful or avail resources in terms of funding, because a lot will be needed to achieve this, because of course in either collecting the data or availing resources to capacity build the various teams. So those are some of the things or the groups that I was able to identify as we went with the discussions throughout the week. Yeah. But come again. I understand there's something online that has been posted. Could you show it?
Can I ask another question? I mean, we know that Calro is not starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
You're talking about the platform and data, etc. I think what we need is to know what you have, your exact gaps. You know, you were saying previously, I think in the first day's presentation, that you had a lot of maps, but they weren't georeferenced, and you've had to go back and like try and fix this. Maybe there's still data sets that aren't georeferenced, so we can put a call out for interest, for example, who has this data set that is georeferenced? That's something that we can do in this forum, right?
Yeah.
And do you have a platform for presenting this, or do you need that starting point? Do you need people from the CG and FAO and others to help you kind of build the visualization dashboard? And as Carl said, if you don't have a good data catalog, you know, you're gonna lose a lot of the elements of the data, and traceability, and your M&E is gonna suffer a little bit from this. So I think that's what we need from Calro, to know out of all of these things what you already have in place and what can be strengthened. Then we can look for partners then to strengthen these. For example, models, there's many different types of models, depends on what we're trying to achieve with the soil. As you've heard, there's many different soil mapping technologies here and people's views on them. So again, we're going to need to kind of decide what models we're trying to utilize, and then see if some of these partners can then volunteer these models at a no cost offering. Anything else? I don't want to put you on the spot, Simon, but you're the most technical here.
That's good.
I think in terms of the data, I was going to make the same points basically, but we have some money here who might have already a ready to use technology to suggest that they've talked about, where they could bring together this data. So maybe you could say a few words about this and bring you the microphone, or actually, maybe you can come to the floor.
Yeah, please come.
I mean, I was about to say that to the extent that it's something that it could be useful for this very preliminary stage. Our platform is pretty much ready to basically host data and permission it. So let's say you just want to make a quick and dirty exercise of putting data available in one place where you want only the accredited people to actually access. We already have some 30,000 samples for Kenya data points, mainly coming from ISDA and some other sources, plus some raster information coming from FAO, ISRIC, and so forth. And WOS is coming from ISRIC. So if you just want to make, again, a quick exercise of say, okay, what data are we talking about? Feel free to tap into this. We can make that available over the platform. And I think that can cover the short term of identifying what do we guys have, what do we have, and how to move forward. And how to move forward is more of a long-term process that goes exactly in the direction that's been referred, which we're trying to serve. Is that government? Is that private sector? Is that farmer advisory, whether it's public or private, it's scientists, and that that requires a thorough exercise to go back to what Carlo was referring before, because building and maintaining is a complicated story. So you need to understand what is the competitive advantage and strength of Carlo, who do you want to serve, and what in the ecosystem, which are the ISRIC, CG, FAO, private sector like us, but also others, could basically host some of the data or manage some of the data to make it really an ecosystem thing. So if you need any help with that, we're more than happy and available and to participate and complement.
Simone, your platform, should it be moved to the Calro Big Data Center? Can it be moved to the Big Data Center? Is this something feasible?
We have been discussing with some other partners in the region to actually white label the platform for them. So yeah, that's something that can it's totally doable, because we got back to what we was referring before of it's a global platform. And we go back to something that the gentleman from ICRAF was saying before. I think it's or no, from CG. You were referring to basically the global product versus a local product. They have to be distinct. They should be distinct. So Soil Hive per se is a global platform that's trying to make global data available, but it can be localized, and all the filters you may use could and should be calibrated based on local needs. So yeah, you can totally do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to repeat myself again, and then forgive me for that one. I think we have a very interesting active project going on led by Carlo and then ISRIC, ICRAF, and the others. We have already established a hub for soil crop information system to be established within Carlo. It exists. I can share the website, and then I think someone from Carlo could present. If Michael Okoti was here, he could have told you. We have been spending 2 years in mapping all stakeholders. Who are the data providers in terms of soil information in Kenya? We map them. We ask data users in Kenya, we map them. We ask the question, what are the constraints and then also the capacities or anything that you need? The data producers told us, not only even at the national level, even at 2 sub-national county levels. We map them. I have 5 reporters on all this mapping and understanding the context within Kenya, Rwanda, and then Ethiopia to some extent. Wonderful. So if that is still an active project to me, the data catalog, it has been really co-developed, not developed by ISRIC or ICRAF, but co-developed with active engagement with key stakeholders from Kenya. Nice. And then let's use that one as a starting point to me to avoid any kind of duplication of our efforts. And then if there is anything missing there, and then let's identify that and then fill it in. Otherwise, to me, it would be repeating ourselves. In terms of data, we started from the policy review. We started of whose mandate is that, and all these kind of things are really well documented. And then Carlo was the lead again. So to me, I would strongly suggest to you, if someone presented a little bit on what is really going on in that project in Carlo would be, to me, very interesting starting point. In terms of data sharing, yes, we have already started collecting and then sending to that particular hub so that it would supposed to serve all data producers and the data users at the end of the day. So I still really interesting to, my take is really, let's try to avoid, restarting the whole thing again and again. Thank you very much.
Let me just comment.
Michael, if you can hear us, you're online, Just unmute and...
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Just comment about this project, Desira.
Yeah, the Zira project seeks to take the soil information to the end users of the information. The project looks at what's available in terms of soil information, and more so, and very specifically, what the users need. We started from this, we looked at the whole ecosystem from data down to decisions, or practice, let me say practice. And we went out there to ask, first of all, what do you need the soil information for? And what kind of decisions do you make the source information? Focusing so much on the soil fertility management and soil and water, let me say land management. And we looked at the level of practice, the level of decisions, information, then terminated with data. And that's why from the time this workshop started, my question was that, or my concern is that the first thing we need to know is that who makes decisions using the source information and what kind of decisions they make. Then we work back and say what kind of information is available. After knowing the information that's available, what are some of the gaps in data that inform those decisions? And we had several meetings at the national level, those at the county level, that's Taita and Busia, which are pilot sites, and asked the many difficult questions from policymakers to practitioners, data that we call them intermediaries, people who are between extension and the farmers. And what they need in terms of data, what's available, what's not available, and also technical organizations, the NAS, such institutions, and also the CGR. And we have quite some discussion there, as Amias was saying. And we have, let me say, robust information on that. From that information, now we developed a model, prototype model, that we want now to roll out to the two communities, that's Taita and Busia, and see how it comes out. The information in the model is informed from various sources, the public, that's in public domain like CARO, or other organizations that opted to give us information. And we are running several models behind that and programs so that the users of information get the right information they need on soil fertility management and also on land management. So the system is there. It's a new system. We are trying it now in Busia and Taita Taveta. And we can open up and discuss further on the same years. But the whole discussion we have had today, from the workshop we have had, there are people who hold data and they're the users. Our main goal was how do we make sure that the users, that's the farmer down there and the policymakers, get the right information to make the right decisions they need to make in agriculture. That's a nutshell what the project is all about.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to hear about all this. Okay, I'm going to be quite blunt here. I've been trying to bring a lot of people around, at the global space on all these things. What I keep on hearing all the time is, we've done it. We have it. Okay, bring it on. So why are we here today still asking for it? So can I please ask for one thing? Can I bring all the people who say we've done it, we have it? Can you all go in one room and have a chat and show what you have to each other? And then you come together, you complement each other, because I'm pretty sure maybe not everything has everyone. And we see that with everything that you have, exactly as Michael was saying, what is the part that you're showcasing that you have that is useful for this or that, or for this model or that model? And your colleagues from CGR need that data. I don't know if they're here, but they have the models and they need that for the models. And sometimes an external person like me who has not really any stake in this, but still would love for all you to cooperate, to say, please come in the room together and talk. So we have one group of people already like that showing up. This is a group of people saying we have the data, but let's organize some follow-up conversations with you all and identify what you have. And it doesn't need to go to the outside world. You share it together I'm sure there can be a gentleman agreement about not sharing the data further if not, if it's not needed. But then we just have this transparency that is really desperately needed. So I think we have one group already, right? So let's follow up, some call for interest that we can stand around, because I'm sure, maybe ISRIC is not connected, maybe there are some other partners not connected, but let's please do this, because my PhD director was saying, like, I'm like a little dog that keeps on hatching and just not letting go. So I was not ready to let go of this, but I'm getting a little bit confused after so long of having people telling me they have things, but not seeing anything. So please do it. Maybe we can think of a second group here, right? The models. Not really sure we have the modeling people here, but we know Carlo has done some modeling work and he's currently advising the government. So maybe we can hear a bit more about how this is going. Unfortunately, we don't have Salim in the room. As I said, he's not there, but could we move maybe to this other conversation of the modeling, and maybe after I see you want the microphone, maybe on other topics. I'm just suggesting modeling, but please come to the floor with any ideas of what you want to talk about.
Thank you, Marie. I just need to calm you down a little bit. I think we have moved very well and things are moving well, but looking at this agroinformatics platform team, as I was listening to the speaker, I was trying to understand it better and possibly identify some limitations or gaps that I could see. And these gaps apply even to the groups that we are going to have. One of the gaps I see based on what we've been presenting since we came is on the data cataloging. There is a problem there in terms of having uniform data that can be compared for decision making. Even listening to the Excellence in Agronomy presentation, they would have data on soil like phosphorus, but it would be modeled from, it would be generated from different analytical methods. So even if it's in the system, unless you have the technology to standardize it to form a uniform measure, then you can't put it in a platform to make decisions. So that is a gap. Even if we form the groups, that still remains. And I believe even us in Calro, as we strive to develop this platform, we need to think about that, and where capacity is needed, we develop capacity on that, on how to harmonize methods and generate comparable information. The other gap I see is on the core data set, the data sets box, the coding system and use of remote sensing, and also how do you bring in the economic statistics into these models. So I would think even in that box, we would need to have a more greater input from agricultural economists and socioeconomists to put them in the core team that will be managing the technical input of this model. Because at the end of the day, they would be required to a core team dedicated for this platform within Calro. They would either be in Kabete or headquarters working with the IT people. And this core team will need capacity in terms of data logging and the core data set box. The other place I see a gap where we need capacity is in modeling. I know when I was a younger scientist, we used to do models, we used to do DSAT, we used to do UpSim, we used to recently during the, what was it, this Clinton Foundation project. What was it? Yeah, the one where we were using Warforst, So, but Slick, yeah, during the Slick project. So there are people who can use crop models, which fit in very well with that box there. But looking around or thinking aloud, we don't have any research scientists within Calro dedicated to modeling. There are very few, and we would need to do an inventory of who is doing what. I don't think we have many, and would need capacity in that. Either they are trained in ISRIC, or they go to Wageningen, or wherever they go for short courses. Some of the interns we have, so that we can fill in the technical bit of what we need for this platform to work. Because without the technical aspect, we have IT. I know GIS, we have Kennedy Ware and his team who are quite competent, but they may also need capacity to strengthen them. So there's a bit of strengthening of that in terms of capacity. Even if we say we have this, we are bringing in this, if it's not standardized, there's still a problem, if we don't have that capacity. Yeah.
I'm suggesting one way forward on this. Again, we will probably send a call for interest for the different institutions which said that they had some models. We know that there's a CGR, Excellence in Agronomy. We know that maybe ISRIC, others might have. Now, it's like for everything. Models usually are, very useful for answering specific questions. So what we could identify is which model is useful for answering which question, which one can we use in the short run for answering the policymakers' question. And looking to the longer run, which one would be more appropriate for maybe the farmer-facing kind of elements that need to be developed, right? But indeed, what you're saying here is that Carlo needs to have the capacity to use these models, and that's part of the sustainability question that we had. So can we add to this group, some suggestion exchange with universities, and directly have some people being trained and staying at Carlo after for the use of these models, and who would be maybe participating in adapting these models to the local situation in Kenya. So that's the second group that will be clearly created, but like with different range of requests on first providing the models that are needed right now for the questions that need answering in the short term, but also whether there could be some programs for exchange programs maybe, or capacity building with Carlo in the longer term. And I know CGR is already, I think, ready to do these kind of things. Stuart, you wanted to say something? Or
Yeah, thank you. I think this is the first time I'm talking since Monday, so I'll be very brief. But I have the benefit that I understand most of what's happening, and even most of the people in this room. I think one thing I want just to advise is that most of us here actually been working on projects. And those projects have some deliverables and actually some specific output. They also have a life. I think one of the thing that we've been going through, and Maria Agnes has been really working through this day and night. I can't remember how many calls we have had. There's so many, they're numerous. But the idea is that we bring all these stakeholders together. And could we leverage on what each is the strength of each stakeholders? But fundamentally, sustainability. Because projects have a life. Projects have deliverable. Let me give an example of this Sierra project, which I was part of the design. I was part of the people who designed it. From proposal to the design of the project, and I started the implementation and I left it halfway. So I understand it inside out. It has very specific deliverables. And sometimes trying to change that in the course of the project is very difficult, because the donor always has given his deliverables. It's EU funded. And if you all know how EU funding works, it's very complex to even change certain things, the vigorous process. But what we're saying is that all that effort will not go into waste once the project closes. how can we leverage on the effort of that? And let's not be confused like now we have a solution. I can tell you we don't have a solution as today. So we need a solution. And that's why we are spending all this time so we can come up with a solution. So let's try to try to really get that clear. Again, on the Desira project, I think what was done was a study in Bungoma, Busia, and Taita Taveta. That does not cover the entire country. And we cannot really generalize and say that we have everything or what you require here from a single project. Yes, the findings from Busia and Bungoma could be critical to inform and actually guide what are the pain points, what are the use cases, where is data available, what are the policy gaps. So I think what I'm trying to emphasize is that let's try to understand why we're here. We're trying to leverage on the strength of each other. I think lastly, what I want to say is, as you go to partnership, it's a very difficult process. And I think Ethiopia is a very good example where they came with the coalition of the wedding called the cow. I would say there's an example case of a successful partnership in Africa. And I think let's also look at who will help us in driving the personal arrangement, because after everybody flies back or drives back, how are we going to get each other again to drive the partnership? So I think Maria Agnes, I think also the aspect of partnership is critical. We need to look at how will that be managed, because we would have forced marriages, we'd have willing marriages, we'll have partners, staying together and not sharing certain things. So we really need to really look into that area of partnership. How do we really manage that? Lastly, we need to look at who is using these platforms we all have. Who is using all the data we all have now? What's the impact we are having now? I think could be less than 1%. So there's still a lot that we can do here. It's a lot that we do. That's why we're here. I see platforms, I see projects, but when it's come to what extent they are transforming the life of Kenyans, I think there's still a big gap there. So as we focus on the data, as we focus on the models, as we focus on the technologies, as we focus on the resources, let us also remember, at the end of the day, if my grandmother is not using it, then there's a problem. And I repeat, if my grandmother is not using it or benefiting from it, then there's a problem. So again, let's also have a team that will think around usability and impact. Christian Pitt is spending quite good money at CGR. I'm sure what will make him happy when he goes back to Sianto is that he's hearing Kenyans are using and impacting or benefiting from the investment that is putting around. So I think let me end it there. But I think I just want to bring those thoughts so that we are focused on why we are here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there are questions. I can't read them. I was trying to go through them. Do you just a couple on Boniface's point. Originally, we were intending to look at, indeed, the governance is going to be essential. Maybe we can look at the coalition of the willing, how they managed to secure, but you're actually right. It's not because sometimes people sign a paper saying they will cooperate, that they actually do cooperate. So we have to assign leads. But I think at this stage, it seems we're not clearly there yet. So I would like, this is why I think a call for interest and, getting on board the people who will answer to this. We also have a question of how we fund all this, the different elements. I think we need to align quite a few things before we can be 100% of how this looks like, but hopefully within the next few hours already we'll have more ideas in that, and in the short term we can have something decided. Stuart, over to you.
Yeah, there's just a few questions. Carl's actually mentioned things that we've already talked about. We should be looking at who's going to lead on models, algorithms, and methodology. I think this is crucial. As we've said, we need someone who's going to do that analysis to answer the questions that we're trying to answer. Someone else has asked, Michael has asked, to make the system robust, we will need to ask ourselves who needs the soil information. I think we've already answered that question as well. Carl then came back and asked, final actionable analysis, ready data shopping list. So I think this is kind of what we were saying. Who has what data, who has what model, and how do we kind of integrate it into the platform? And then we talked about that there's some ongoing work that's already been done. Again, we should leverage the work that's already been done and not start from ground zero. I think that's it from the remote questions. Does anyone else have anything to contribute? It's an open platform. We're talking about how to get going. Anyone? I think, Mary Agnes, we've come to the end of people's...
Excuse me.
Sorry, one thing we didn't mention, we're, I must admit, I think we feel we're a bit improvising at some point, but, filling the room. But something that we also wanted to test with you and see later conversation who would be part of this, but clearly there will be a need for a steering committee, a technical committee. We don't want to reinvent the wheel once again. We know that there are some which have been created around the big data platform. So, leveraging these steering committees would be, or technical committees would be important, but adding to them the elements of the soul and maybe having some of the specialists from Caro appointed into this technical committee. So I think the next step for us will be, there will be some discussions with Caro and coming back with a suggestion of work packages. And I think Simon has been looking into them now. They're relatively straightforward, but Simon, do you want to say a few words about this? Oh, sorry, there was a question also. Rick, Rick from ISRIC. Over to you, Rick.
Yeah, good morning. Sorry. Good morning, everybody in the room. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, it's a bit coming back to the discussion that I listened to like 15 minutes ago, and I was pleased with your intervention, Agnes, saying that we need to bring together everything that we already have. And that's very obvious. And Ermias explained a bit about that project that already sheds a light on what users need. But I wanted to say that another emotion that I have is that we need to start simple. I have the feeling when listening to the discussion that things have become extremely complex with trying to get everything and everybody on board and all the aspects of a very complicated system. And I would make a plea for something start simple. And one of the use cases that are very, very obvious to my opinion is the use case of developing nutrient deficiency maps for policymakers and for fertilizer industry. We have had example of a very short and simple project in Niger where we developed relatively quick and dirty nutrient deficiency maps for a specific crop on a specific soil, information that usually doesn't exist. And we advised the fertilizer company to make 4 different blends instead of 1. And they did it, and yields went up with 50%. With a factor of 2. So that use case is so important because the last speaker from Kenya said, if my grandmother doesn't use it, then it's not good. And I fully agree with him that if we don't produce quickly fertilizers that are really benefiting farmers in the field, then we're doing something wrong. And this is for me, the low-hanging fruit. Nutrient efficiency maps for specific crops on specific soils can really help us forward. And maybe we can focus on that use case and then take it further and build on that platform and make it more comprehensive. I don't know if I'm getting across. It's very difficult to talk from a distance, but this is the intervention that I would like to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. Sorry, I'm taking the floor, but brilliant. This is exactly what we're expecting from you all. You know, it's quite a confusing world to see from the outside. So basically, we rely on the experts and the people who have the knowledge and know what they can do to suggest what they can do, and you just did it. So great. You know, let's see with the Calro team, we have that group that can, you know, look into this data part, and this is exactly what this working group can come forward with, these kind of maps, and then that could, you know, also feed into other work programs that we can look into. But I think basically we have data, model, elements of capacity building, I think we're asked for. I don't want us to forget the value chain. And as you were saying, you know, who one audience that we don't want to forget is the fertilizer companies. Simon, I don't know if you wanted to just list the work packages that you had.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some of the possible work packages that we can derive from these. And like you mentioned, is that of course, in terms of the committee, we'll be having the steering com, and then we have the technical. Those are the possible two committees as now. Then the work packages, we have work package one that could be looking at data. Of course, things like, and the GIS team would also fall in that group. Then work package two, we have capacity building. Then work package three, we have the technical team. This is a modeling, guys. Work package four, we have infrastructure. And then we still have rooms for, I've thought of having around 8 work packages. So we still need to identify the rest. But the last one that is obvious is governance and communication. So I'm looking at around 8 work packages, still trying to figure out the remaining 3 as at now.
And so one thing that I would suggest also is that, as Rick just did, can we organize a conversation about, or, you know, gathering what can be done, you know, really clear questions or things that we know are feasible in the short run, and decide exactly, and maybe suggest them to the government, to the policymakers. Is this what you would be interested in? But we need to do this really, really quickly. And then we align the work packages around this. You know, we give them targets about what they need, each of them needs to accomplish, and, you know, get them to work together towards the end with the data, you know, feeding into the models, and, you know, feeding into the other elements, you know, how the infrastructure is being built around this, et cetera, right? So, but we need the question to be clearly identified. Parvati.
I just want to make one point. So it is really good that we start with the use case and then build the data model, capacity building and all this. But we need to keep in mind that the infrastructure and the discussions we had in the morning, it plays a really important part. So Rick mentioned that, let's say we do it for one crop and we showcase that it works. How easy is it to replicate in the next growing season? Like, do we have to again start from scratch? And if, let's say, we want to add another crop to a similar exercise, do we again go from scratch, or can we build on top of it iteratively? This is where the fair data principles, partnerships, the digital public goods, all the things that we discussed in the morning actually plays an important part, is that it doesn't then become a new program, a new work package, but that can be built on top of it. And I just want to make that point of replicability and scalability. Thanks.
So I think the interesting point in what you made is that there needs to be commitment from the different groups to work towards different clear objectives. So we're working in the area of the digital global public goods, fair data, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe this has to be written, and there could be a working group that would be focusing on this, and maybe bring together FAO, CGR, and all the people who actually developed and discussed these kind of technical. And so I would suggest that someone take the lead in bringing these people together. Maybe FAO could do that, since you're the highly technical. Or Parvati suggests to do this? No? You have a comment? Okay, but let's add this to the list of, the group that needs to create some clear guidelines of how this is being developed.
Sorry, just one question, Simon, if you can go back to the work program that you put, right? I think one thing we have to also, based on discussions yesterday and today, is the user engagement, right? And the user experience and the stakeholder mapping. I think that should also be a key part of the work program, or in one of the components, because we need to really engage them, not at the end when the project is done and we want to start the communication and engagement, but right from the beginning, and involve them in the design and the conceptualization and the ideation phase itself. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
So
I
we
think
add this?
yeah, I think we're doing well. We're building on the work packages, so I will be able to present the list again in a
Okay,
few. Yeah.
further thinking about it.
All right.
Inputs from the... So please take the floor online. I don't know who's...
Are you going to let me talk? Can I talk?
Yes, we can let people talk, but we don't necessarily see you. We're sorry. Just, sometimes I have to be a bit...
I don't have enough bandwidth. But I'm just asking, everything that's been presented is very good. I was in a meeting the past 2 days, but today I was not able to make it. So everything is good, but we're not putting in. But the lady who has just spoken, she has supported what I was trying to present in the chat, is we need to focus on the user. Where is the user? The user should be in that room right now. We need to do stakeholder profiling. That lady has just said that. So you guys, you're so technical, you've forgotten the person who this data is going to benefit. So can we start having a work package that just focuses on the user? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I just said, I think a few minutes ago, Salim from Carlo is actually sitting with the government right now, trying to identify what they need. So I think we are talking to the users. In the short run, they are the users. In the longer term, we have a lot of programs here which showcase that they are interacting with farmers, and Carlo is talking to farmers. We have Lillian in the room, who can be one in the user. So I do believe we're speaking to the users. Maybe the fact that it's remote is always making things a little bit more complicated, but I do strongly believe that since we've focused a lot on user interface and the user-centric work, we strongly support what you're saying, Meklit. So hopefully there's an agreement. It's not always that easy. We don't have any farmer organization in the room, is for sure, but hopefully some good representative for it.
But it wasn't Meklit speaking, Mari.
Pardon?
It wasn't Meklit who was speaking now. It was someone else.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we were giving you the floor, but Meklit, you had your hand up, no?
Yeah, I have my hand up, but I want to say
Okay, I'm
something
sorry.
else.
I thought we were giving you the floor. Over to you, Meklit.
No, it wasn't me. So
apologies.
No worries at all. I just want to share the experience we had in Ethiopia in October. We were in the same kind of almost situation where there were many products from different institutions, and they were kind of a bit locked with the discussion of how to go forward, right? I think the breakthrough came when we put the technical people who are working hands-on, right? Not the managers, but the project coordinators, but those people who claim to have doing the job, who have the code and the thing. We put them all together in one room and we asked them, open it up, let's evaluate, and let's understand how we come together. That is when the real breakthrough came. So now as well, I suggest in the use cases, let's do the same thing. Identify those people. It might not be today or tomorrow. Some teams might not have their technical people, but let's plan that we sit together open up our computers and show I have ABCD and understand each other and come together. And in terms of platform, where to implement it as well, the same thing. Where is it more sustainable for Calvo, where everybody could be also benefited from? So that is just what I want to contribute to Mash.
Thank you very much, and really agreeing with you. We need at some point the technical people who know, like Rick just mentioned, who know exactly what can be done. You know, the terms for it, the feasibility of it all, and bring them together, and connect maybe them more directly to the users, and maybe here to a conversation with the government, or Calvo could be an intermediary to really try to figure out a menu of options. Maybe this is what we need. Why don't we create a menu of options with what's available, and we submit it and we see how it works, in the same way that in your models you were showcasing it could be about productivity, it can be about profitability. So bring these questions out there, because me not being a specialist, I know that it's always useful for me to understand what actually can we do with a model. I used to work on models, but I know there are many different things and different objectives. So thanks, everyone. I will, unless there are strong people feeling that they would like to take the floor. Chris, maybe I think you always have good ideas. So if you have anything to add at this stage, I'm looking at you. No. Sorry.
Thank you, Mary. I just want to put an emphasis on the user, because there'll be two forms of user. There'll be a strategy for the purpose of awareness and adoption. And that is where the stakeholder mapping will come at some point, but we shall develop a strategy which will create awareness, but also there'll be a user interface point. That is where they'll be involving now the users for the purpose of the tools that the ICT team are going to develop for the purpose of acceptance and usability. So there'll be a strategy for the purpose of adoption, and then there'll be a user. That is what I think there should be a forum also for the purpose of usability of those tools that they are going to develop, because they are also part of those who are going to validate the tools, and they should be involved at that point as tools users, the user interface. So there'll be various user interfaces for the purpose of the use of the tool, and then for the purpose of awareness. That is now when you are going to do stakeholder mapping for the purpose of bringing out the messaging, the right messaging for the policymakers, for the farmers, for the extensionists, for the what. But so they'll be like, when they'll be developing the tools, they'll also involve the farmers, the extensionists, the users of those tools for the purpose of validation and acceptance. But also on the other side of communication, for the purpose of adoption and for the general public, there's going to be a lot of visibility activities to ensure that the public knows what is happening along the soil. They can identify with it. They can support you. There are those donors also want to come on board to sustain for the purpose of sustainability. So you are creating a lot of visibility for the purpose of sustainability. So there'll be various user interfaces, and also for the purpose of development of the tools. So I want to believe that the team that is going to do the adoption part, they'll be able to sit together, but also during the development, they are going to involve the users.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so can I ask one thing from Calro? Based on all these work packages or these different ideas, I would love for Calro to appoint a champion for each of them, who's going to lead and bring the people together and really push for these conversations to happen in the way that you need. Okay, so I think that would be really one good way of ensuring that this is also your product towards the end, and we're ensuring the sustainability and how it's really answering your concerns and your questions. So that would be the end for me. Just this plea, please, a champion for each of these work packages. Should I give the floor to someone else who wants to talk?
No, I think that's all right, Maria Agnes. So I've compressed the work packages to cater for the entire discussion, and there are around 5 of them now. So we have the use cases and also the UI. In short, that's where we have the user. We have the capacity building. We have the modeling. We have the data and infrastructure. Then the last one is the governance, partnership, and communication. And we do have some possible champions who can take lead for the various work packages. For now, I would say maybe work package 1 and 5 that would ideally come out strongly with Calro. Then the others, we have, yes, Stuart. Yeah.
You've joined a governance, partnership, and communication together. I think these are actually quite big topics. You know, governance management is a task in itself, and so should partnership be. You got the whole customer relationships management. You know, how you're dealing with it, who you add, who you remove, what they're bringing to the relationship, whether you need MOUs, etc., etc. So that's like, it's already been discussed, actually, the partnership role that Calro already has, and that's like a particular team you have.
Yeah.
So I would break those open into three separate items, and I think that brings you up to your 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's welcome. We can look at splitting them because we were trying to minimize on having so many work packages, but I agree they are quite heavy. We can see if we can probably compress to have 2, maybe partnership and communication as an independent work package. But thanks, Stuart.
Additional suggestion for me on the use case, can we maybe have a separation between the different users that we're looking at? So there's one clearly for policymakers. I think there's one for the fertilizer industry that we can think through, and I think there's one of the clearest question I had here in the room is from Lillian, and they have a clear need. They know exactly what they need and what they can come to the fore with, and they're organized already compared to some other work packages where we still need to plan the organization and how people are going to work together. So I would suggest that maybe we have one on policymakers and another one on the fertilizer stakeholders from the value chain. Yeah, big topic, data infrastructure. We might have to, I think we need to separate also data as, consolidating the soil data within Calro and with what's available globally. I think that's one work package we've identified and talked about with clear stakeholders in the room already. And I think the beyond this, the infrastructure is something that I think and I don't want to talk for GIZ colleagues, but they have capacity in this that they could specifically appoint. And we know that this infrastructure is not only for this use case, but will definitely go beyond. So it needs a different set of competencies, I think, and competencies that will organize the different elements that Carl has mentioned in his. So they will be more in charge of these kind of elements, I think. So suggesting a different group. And it could be more Calro focused. It doesn't need to be a large group.
Just like to say that FAO are volunteering to assist with work packages 2, 4, and 5 with their technical knowledge. But it will be from headquarters for now. And I think Mary-Agnes said we also need to identify someone locally who can kind of coordinate all of these activities. I don't know if you want Calro to take the lead in organizing a focal point. It's going to be time consuming, that's for sure. But FAO can help you with some of the technical aspects that Carl and Yusuf presented, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. So I think I'll be able to present again the work packages with the changes that people have proposed, and also just propose a lead for each of the work packages, and we can deliberate on that. There's already identified the institutions that can, so yeah.
I will close. Thank you. I think we've come a long day, and thanks, Stuart, for where? Huh? Meklit, you have your Janet. You have your
Yes,
hand
thank
up?
you. Yes,
Yes.
I have. I just want to confirm that CGR will be very much willing to support Calro in modeling and technical at any role that they see it fit. So yeah, that's just what I want to mention. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a lot of volunteers, and we appreciate what each and every partner intends to, how they intend to complement this system. Let me just pass it over to you.
My apologies. At the risk of sounding very redundant, I would just like to add on two things from what Simon has shared. One, that we have several work packages here. And out of every work package, I think there should be sort of like some set of deliverables, right? The first one we have identified is trying to have members who are going to fill into those work packages, right? That is the very first thing. We have, I think the rapporteur has been taking notes, and I know we have already a few organizations that have volunteered. So at least for every work package, we know who is leading on what and who is supporting. The second is now going to more details in terms of defining the exact deliverables. For in terms of capacity, what are we really looking at? In terms of the governance, and I think Dr. here has really, been talking about partnerships. What do we expect in like 3 months' time, right? So for me, that should be like the immediate next step, perhaps even by next week or at the earliest time possible. Of course, cross-cutting across all this is somebody who's going to coordinate this. I know, of course, Garo is doing a lot, but that is also a consideration. I think what Stuart was talking about, trying to think of, do we need perhaps one person, or do they need assistance in terms of coordinating this? Just my thoughts. Apologies, Dr.
Okay. Thank you. I think that is something that we will consider. And I can tell you, even as we break for this session, just a few of us will be meeting and will be maybe doing a way forward, which we should be able to present in tomorrow's forum. Stuart, I wanted to clap for you because I think you've done a good job. Thanks also to Marie. That was a tough session. I know there's a presentation that was not done, but unfortunately, lunch is ready. And I'm being told that if you delay too much, you'll not get your lunch. So, so the best thing is I think, I don't know how tomorrow's session, but tomorrow's session, and that's the one I want to highlight on, will be basically, we'll basically be looking at the roadmap and next steps. And that's why I'm saying that there's a team that will meet after that will consolidate all that, and that is what will be presented. So in terms of attendance for tomorrow, we were expecting, of course, the Caro team to be there. We were expecting somebody from PETS to be there. We were expecting somebody from the ministry, the mother ministry, Ministry of Agriculture. We were expecting a representation from the private sector, FAK, AFAP, IFDC. And we were also expecting a representative from, because one of our major areas which we thought that would be done was something on fertilizer optimization, and that is why we're expecting that a team from there. And of course, our other partners, Agra, ICRAF, somebody from the university. So it was going to be a smaller team, an even smaller team than we are here, so that even as we go through the way forward, roadmap, and next steps, it will be much easier to get feedback. The idea is feedback. As we think of a roadmap, can we get a feedback from each of these partners? That is the idea that we had, and I still think we'll pursue it. It will be a very short session that will take maybe 9 to 11:30 will be done. And we're expecting the DJ Caro to come and close this session. Then after that, we hit the road running. That's what we know. Emas, it's good that Boniface was here because he was part of the project. Michael Okoti was also online, and he really, and I think the explanation given is what we started with, that we didn't want to present something that is ongoing and something that we don't know is EU funded. We don't know what EU would say. And that's why we still don't want to pursue it. But if I may say, we started with a use case. The presentation that was done on Tuesday by Dr. Kimani was a use case, and it was on soil nutrient, deficiencies from those maps. And one of the areas, and I think he didn't present that, we were going to use maize as a use case, which is in that report, which will inform policy on what kind of fertilizers, that the government needs to import. And I think that's something we can pursue in this platform, and I'm sure we'll be able to do that. So without much ado, I want to maybe request that we end with a word of prayer and we go for lunch. That's okay? So I want to ask Lillian. Lillian represents FAK. Yes, close with a word of prayer, and we go to first floor for lunch, and we break for the day. For those of us who are going to remain, just a few of us, we will ask, request, and talk to you individually. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we are thankful for this day. We are thankful for what we have managed to achieve so far. Thankful for the wisdom, for the many deliberations, for the inputs from all the different partners. And Father, Lord, we know this is for a greater purpose, for the sake of this country, for our productivity, for food security, for policy. And Lord, we pray that even as we go towards the start of this actualization of this project, Lord, we do pray that you'll continue to guide us, to direct us, to grant us wisdom, to grant us unity, even that is needed in being able to achieve what it is that we are looking forward to achieve. As we break today, and even as we're going to eat our food, we ask that you may bless the food, even as we take it in thanksgiving. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.